Welcome to Death on Call, AC-130 crew, camaraderie, chaos, and confessions. I'm your host, J.L. Pelt, former AC-130U model, Spooky Gunship Loadmaster. This podcast isn't about me, and it never will be. It's about the crews, my brothers and sisters in arms, who flew, fought, and kept that flying howitzer in the fight, turning it into the most feared, lethal, and in-demand close air support platform across the entire global war on terror and every major contingency since. This is your space, an open mic for anyone who's ever crewed an AC-130. Gunners, FEs, NAVs, FOCOs, EWOs, loadmasters, sensor operators, pilots, whoever, to share your real stories, what it was like in the dark and what it meant then and what it still means now. The triumphs, the terror, the brotherhood, the shenanigans, and yes, all the good, bad, and ugly that came with it. No agenda here. No declassifying secrets. We're not diving deep into the missions themselves. We're talking about the symphony of chaos you experienced every time those engines roared and the guns came alive, no matter which model you flew. I thank my gunship family for their service and thank you for tuning in. Buckle up. We are cleared hot and gun ready. Welcome to the circus.
Check in. Crew. Voices in the dark, altitude and attitude, laughter over scars. Death on call, we ride that line together. Stories from the sky, we drag 'em through the weather. Yeah. Death on call, we bleed in quiet confessions. AC hearts built from chaos and aggression.
This is Death on Call, Episode 3, titled It's Always Funner with a Gunner. Today, we have two, as we said, aerial gunners on the show. We have retired Master Sergeant Ben Naro, and we have former Staff Sergeant Brian Alexander. I will read retired Master Sergeant Ben Naro's bio that he sent me, exactly as how he sent it. I am Ben Naro from Bollinger, Texas. I joined the Air Force after high school as a gunner, October 1st of 2002. I checked out on the AC-130U at Hurlburt Field in February of 2004 and deployed that same month. I am married and have 4 kids. Fiona's 22, goes to school in Orlando. Bella's 15, Benny is 14, and Nicholas is 7. I retired from the Air Force, got forced out in March of 2023 due to the COVID jab. I took a contract job at the 19th SOS, and once that all started to shut down, I volunteered to set up the new schoolhouse at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico. I'm currently a sim operator on the AC-130J, assisting with every crew position on the ACJ. I checked out on the ACJ in 2021, but never deployed or anything because of the COVID jab. I was born for this job because later in my career, we switched from gunners to special mission aviators. My first duty station was special operations, and when I was in school, I was in special ed. Noticing a theme yet? Welcome to the show, Master Sergeant Ben Naro.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my claim to fame. I was born for anything special.
And our second guest tonight is former Staff Sergeant Brian Alexander. Brian joined the Air Force in 2005, left for boot camp on half-a-day notice on his 20th birthday, was active duty from July of 2005 to December 2009 in the 4th Special Operations Squadron U-Model Gunner. He did 5 gunship deployments, 4 to Balad, 1 to Kandahar. He was a reservist from December 2009 to July 2012 in the 301st Rescue Squadron HH-60 Gunner. Deployed 1 year to Afghanistan as a UAV mission commander on RQ-23 Tiger Shark as a contractor. Has worked in UAS ever since, mostly startup focused on the telecom industry. He took a small break from telecom at UAS and did 1.5 years at Raspet Flight Research Lab at Mississippi State University. And he is currently the Senior Director of Operations for 5x5 Technologies. He has a bachelor's from Embry-Riddle, an MBA in Aviation Finance from Embry-Riddle, and an executive MBA in Strategic Leadership from the University of Tennessee. He lives just outside Little Rock, Arkansas, with his wife and 2 daughters and 2 stepkids. Welcome to the show, former Staff Sergeant Brian Alexander.
Thanks. Good to be here.
So, we're on episode 3 now, and this is all about gunners. It's always funner with a gunner. So, that being said, Ben, tell me how you got there. Tell me, obviously boot camp, and then, went through all the schools, but then you go to BAG and you get gunships. And from there, tell me everything, like your impression. Did you get what you wanted? Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I'll just start from the top. So yeah, I decided to join the Air Force mainly because I saw the sweet bonus that they had for the PJs. So that's what I wanted to go in for. And so we did like the tests there at a Goodfellow Air Force Base, but they didn't have a pool. So that was the only thing that they didn't have. So my recruiter basically told me, hey, just pick a job, any job, doesn't matter. Get to basic. And then a couple of weeks into your in at basic, they're going to come in and ask who wants to join, pararescue. You raise your hand and, you'll go take the test there. You pass, you get the bonus. I'm like, sweet. So I go to MEPS. I saw the gunner job on there. I'm like, man, that looks pretty cool. So I picked it, but at the time I didn't care, right? Because I was trying to go PJ. But I go home, I start researching it, right? And I'm asking other people from the military about it. Had some Air Force friends, and all of them are saying that, those jobs don't exist. It's not true. Air Force doesn't have helicopters. And you can't get it, right? It's impossible. So whatever, I don't care. I get to basic, and like within the first week at basic, other TIs are pulling me aside, asking me about my job, how I got it, all kinds of stuff. So I realized it's kind of something cool, kind of something important. And then finally, when they came in to ask about the PJ job, one of the other guys there, I was with a bunch of reservists. I don't know why. There was probably only 7 of us active duty. The rest were all reservists in my flight. But those guys, a lot of them were older, and they kind of warned me. They're like, hey, look, man, just, I don't know your capabilities, but here's the deal. When you go volunteer for this PJ thing, if you fell out or you don't make it for whatever reason, you go back open general, and that might suck. This job you have looks freaking awesome. And most guys can't get air crew like right out of high school. It doesn't exist. He's like, and then this job definitely you're not supposed to get out of high school. So I think I would maybe pursue that. So I pursued it. The route back then was a little different. You went from basic to Medina. So now you go from basic and you stay at Lackland. It's there. But we go over to Medina, and again, there wasn't too bad. I mean, I wasn't the best student there, but it wasn't that bad. I felt like, hey, if I give it, 10% effort, I can make it through this course. It wasn't until later in some of the, like the aerial gunner course and everything else, when I realized like I may be out of my, maybe a bit off more than I can chew here, just learning all the knowledge these guys had. But I went from there, after Medina, I graduated EAUC, then went out to do like Fairchild and everything else. To me, that was the weirdest thing, because everybody else, they already knew where they were going. They had already been to their tech school. They'd already done that. I'm fresh out of basic. So when they're slapping you around, asking you like what aircraft you're on, I'm like, I don't fucking know, bro. I could be on a helicopter. I could be on a plane. I don't know. Like, quit hitting me. But a funny story about that, though, is we're getting hit. I'll never forget this. Like, to the day that I'm down, I'll never forget it. Literally, when you're first getting hit, like you're first getting beat up, like within like the first like 5 minutes, like nobody's supposed to cape, right? Right away, this tech sergeant, big dude from New York, is like, all right, I'll talk. I can't take it. We're like, everybody's like, what? Like, even the instructor's like, what the hell? Because as they're hitting you, they're asking you, like, what plane are you on? How many engines does your plane have? All these questions. And he stands up and he goes, sir, we don't call them engines. We call them Native Americans. Everybody freaking busted out laughing, like to the point where the instructors are like, all right, game back on. They start trying to beat the shit out of us again. And one of them says, how many engines? Oh, my fucking God. And they all bust out laughing again. They legit had to bring a whole new team to get those guys out of there because they couldn't get back in character. They couldn't stop laughing. Well,
That's
whatever.
great.
So we finished that, and then from there you're supposed to go to the swim course, and it's supposed to be like a little underwater swim, like nothing crazy. But for whatever reason, the pool got messed up, the dunker, and so they
Mhm.
sent us to Lemoore Naval Station. So again, I'm new, I don't know any of this stuff, but we get to the naval station, and these guys took it as we're trying to say because that's where the Navy divers train. So they're trying to say they took it as an insult, thinking that you Air Force guys think you can come train with the Navy divers, like you don't have the skill for this. So they made it a point to like try to wash everybody out. You know, we're supposed to do this little underwater swim, supposed to do some flutter kicks for a little bit and like tread water, and then do the dunker. It ends up being a whole day thing where they just gas us, PT us, and like legit, like 90% of the people there failed. The only guys that passed, I passed, maybe a couple other aircrew guys, and then the rest was like PJ, CCT, nightmare, right? But then we eventually,
Okay,
like,
but in the normal dunker course, how many, if any, actually fail the normal traditional dunker?
I don't know. I never went to the traditional. I went to the one at Lemoore Naval Station, and it was nuts because I'm
Right.
in there with PJs and shit. So those guys just want to hold their breath on the bottom of the pool for forever. I don't. I'm not trained for
Yeah.
that. And then so a couple
We
of times, like at one point, I failed, and I remember I ripped off my goggles to see, and there's like all these dudes looking at me in scuba gear, and I'm like, "What the fuck? You saw me drowning, bro! Like, why aren't you saving me?" So I get to the top, and I'm telling them those questions, like, "Why? What the fuck, man? You saw me drowning?" And they're like, "Dude, we're not gonna rescue you while you're conscious, because you could rip our mask off and endanger us. We wait till you pass out, and then we'll get you." I'm like, "What the fuck?" And they're like, "Get back in the dunker. You fell the course." I'm like, all right, fuck, here we go. Trying to catch my breath, getting back in there. And then on the way down, I'm telling the guys, like, as soon as we hit the fucking water and we flip over, unbuckle your shit and get out because I can't hold my breath as long as you guys. And so that's what we did. And I ended up passing the course. But so then
Okay.
after that, so then after that, we go to go meet, God dang it, why am I drawing a blank now? At Kirtland with, God, the
Angel,
instructor, Angel. Yeah,
Caesar,
Caesar Archangel.
Archangel.
Legend, right? Legend.
Mhm.
So I meet him. And the theme back then, everybody wanted MH-53s. I mean, that was
Mhm.
just what everybody wanted. So I was determined to get it. So I was going to try. It was me, Ben Hafer. No, wait. Yeah, Ben Hafer, Chris Martin, uh, Kevin Gridley. Um, so once we got there, and after like the first week, I realized like, 53s goes to the like the highest performer, and I was like, these guys are way smarter than me. Like, I'm not going to be able to pass these guys. So maybe I'll start focusing on something else. So I thought about 60s. Hueys were never really even discussed. Um, and then uh, Art Caesar was on the H model. I knew I really didn't want to do that. The whole pressurization thing sounded a whole lot cooler than flying with around with the doors off and wind blowing in my face and all that shit. So I was like, man, I think I'm gonna do this U model thing. So I kind of let the class know early on that that's what I was going to shoot for. Most of them all wanted helicopters, so it was I got what I wanted out of it. Show up to Hurlburt Field, met Kevin Kloppel, and just to put a visual in your head of what Kevin Kloppel would look like, just this stocky ass dude, looks like a damn Marine, and just knows everything about the gunship, and like from day one, show up like grilling me, and then they tell me, I gotta. He's showing me where my dorms at. So he's taking me to the dorms, and he's like, "Hey, by the way, like you guys are on a like where you can't leave your dorm room. You have to stay in your room because somebody had literally got drunk in the dorms and shit on the pool table, like left a turd on top of the pool table, and so they put us all on lockdown. So I was like, what the hell I get myself into? So I get there to my room, and he leaves and everything else, and then eventually, all the guys come out of the room, come knock on the door. Everybody's drinking already. I'm like, man, this sounds like a pretty cool freaking place to be. Like, hell yeah. That's where I meet like Brian Belden, John Cover, Jerry Hughesman. Those guys that just came in before me. So just to kind of backtrack a little bit here and kind of get a understanding. Gunships typically only got given to like a tech sergeant, right? Airmen didn't get this job, and there's a reason for that. I mean, these guys were freaking experts. So I remember when I first got into the unit, and just these guys, the way they would grill us, I was like, dude, I'm never gonna get this. And I thought a lot of them were assholes actually. I was like, these guys are just dicks. But then after I got checked out, and kind of realized what they're dealing with, they were trying to cram like 12 years of knowledge into like this little 6-week course, which is impossible. And the other thing they realized, like these guys were legit experts in their field. and the the buck had already got sent, right. They knew they had to train us. There's no turning that off. So when they decided to open the pipeline up to just give it to anybody, they let literally anybody in. These other guys, they had to go through like a psych evaluation, all this stuff. So yeah, you might have the knowledge to do this job, but you're not gonna. Maybe you don't have the psych. The
Yeah, you may not
mindset.
have the temperament and yeah, the mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, all that. So like now I kind of know where they're coming from and I get it. But in that, I just remember that we're in the dorm life. The reason the dorm life was so crazy is because when they opened that pipeline up and everybody came into AFSOC, like 90% of them filled out. They didn't make it. But then when they turned that pipeline on, they didn't ever think about what do we do with these guys if they don't pass the course. So these guys are just sitting there for years. They didn't know where to send them. The command they came from or where they came from didn't want them back. AFSOC had no job for them, so they're just there. So there was all these like, I guess, dorm room lawyers and just and the thing was they'd been there for a year, so they'd bust in your room and try to haze you, and you're like, why are you hazing me, bro? Like you haven't even checked out on this job, and you're trying to grill me on shit. Like, shut up. But yeah, once I found out the guys that were gonna make it, I would honestly I don't know if it's true or not, but I would say Jared Huseman and John Culver were probably some of the first actual gunners on the U model that came through. There was guys prior to them, but I don't think those guys ever checked out. They filled out. They were the first ones that I knew of that checked out. I could be wrong.
I think everybody you just mentioned, minus Brian Belden, even though Brian was qualified, became instructors and evaluators.
Yeah. Me and Jared Huseman worked together out here.
Okay,
Dude.
cool.
You can tell him I said hi.
Oh, we'll do. Yeah. But yeah, so that was it. And then we went through that whole thing, and then I still feel like a baby in the gunship. But yeah, eventually I got instructor evaluator.
That's because
did a
you're
bunch of
short,
components.
man. You're small.
So that's one thing I want to clear up. So I've heard a rumor that Chris Jetty has been saying that he holds the record, and I just want to come out and say we can do this face to face or back to back, however you want to measure us. But I think I hold the record as the shortest gunner.
I mean, I can totally confront him next Sunday when I have the full gun crew on about that, and then we can do pics and evidence, stand up against a wall, and I mean I don't know how we standardize the measurement, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think I hold the record.
Okay, so you got to the 19th, and you're going through first impression. I mean,
First impression, legit, was I bit off more than I can chew.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pass this course. This is insane. Uh, there was Nick Harper was another one that was with me. He came through, but he went H models. I went
Right.
U-boats. But yeah,
Okay.
the caliper of knowledge these guys had, I was like, dude, this is not for me. And then also the Air Force was not for me because I was like, when I got in, get through basic, I'm like, okay, my checks are pretty low, but they should get bigger, right? And then I get to tech school and I'm like, they didn't get much bigger. So then I start,
yeah.
getting on the interwebs and looking at, okay, if I promote, so every rank I looked at, I'm like, that's not enough either. Like, what the? And I'm like, I get all the way to like chief, and I'm like, well, that's not. I want to make more than that. Like, what the fuck? This is it, and I gotta wait, so many, every 2 years to promote. Like, so every enlistment that came up, I was like, I'm getting out, and then something would happen, and I ended up staying in. Weird. I'm in retirement. I was like, I was never supposed to be here. I was supposed to got out a long time ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't. I mean, I guess there's probably a good portion that get to gunships and decide they're gonna stay, but I feel like I knew more folks that rode one enlistment out and said "see ya" than I knew that were like, I'm gonna do 20 in this. I mean, I don't know. For me, it just seemed like it is as air crew, it's harder to stay off of DNIF as the time wears on your body, especially in a job that physically taxing at times.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian, what about you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, so my road to the 19th was fairly similar to Ben's. I went in as a gunner, wanted to be a gunner. took the ASVAB, and MEPS was like, "Oh, look at this! You could go be a nuclear technician and all this shit." And I was like, "I want to shoot guns out of airplanes," and that was it. That was hooked from the beginning. Same thing. I wanted 53s. I was good with 60s, but that was really kind of the fast forward to the schoolhouse for bag, and it really was like amongst the students there. It was kind of like, oh, gunships aren't a real gunner. That's sort of how the students bash each other. So I was originally given 60s out of Moody. I kind of put down Moody. I put down 53s, didn't get it. Tried to switch assignments with a guy, didn't take it. So I was put down Moody because I had friends from high school actually that had moved down to Jacksonville, Florida. Because I knew Moody wasn't the greatest place to be as far as locations, but I was like, I got my boys somewhat close, like we can party on the weekends. So I did that, got it, and just sat around the schoolhouse, mopping floors and sleeping in wall lockers, trying to, not have to clean floors for the day. For so long, it was 6-7 weeks with no actual flight training date on the horizon. And we had 2 people, both out of my class actually, that one of them self-eliminated and one of them got married to a 60 guy. I forget all what happened, but ended up dropping her slot. So they just asked for 2 volunteers, like, hey, you'll be out of here next week, on your way home, and then, on your way to Hurlburt Field, which, I grew up, my parents had a vacation kind of condo they rented out on Okaloosa Island. So like I knew the area. I loved that area, and I was like, let's do it. Let's just get gunships. Let's get the hell out of, ATC and go do the damn thing. So did it. Went home, got down to Hurlburt. Got down to Herbie, and the funny part was, as Phil Bevel, who's another gunner in my class, U model guy, was over in Illinois, and we both left at the same time. I called him, on our during recruiter's assistance. I was like, hey, why don't I just come grab you and we'll both drive down there together. So I went and picked him up, and we're driving down, from Illinois down to Fort Walton Beach on a Sunday. And we got about 3/4 of the way, and we just sort of had this moment of, what do we do when we get there? We haven't talked to anybody. No one's called us. We don't have a point of contact. Where are we going to go? So 2 20-year-olds just like driving down to Florida going, we don't know where we're going to sleep tonight. And finally, we got a hold of one of the students ahead of us, put us in touch with the Master Sergeant over the 19th that was in charge of like the students at the time, and he'd shoot our asses and for not calling sooner, which was legit, and got us a spot on the base hotel, and it was great. But then about 3 days later, the rest of our guys from our class showed up. They also didn't have a point of contact, so they just sort of showed up, and instead of them getting chewed out, that Master Sergeant just brought me in and chewed me out for not calling them and helping them. And I was like, it's not my fault. So that was weird. It was just sort of we're driving across country to this base, and we have no idea what we're going to do when we get there. Once we got to the unit, I was and started class. I think it was everything that I wanted, that I could hope for. The group in the dorms that we had been introduced to at the time were great. The party culture was already in full swing. We had just moved into the brand new quad dorms. We were the first ones to live in it, so the housing was wonderful. Standards wise.
Wasn't like that in the dorms we were in prior to you.
Yeah, no.
It was a shithole.
Yeah, no. And so no, I mean, it was a young group of guys, all non-priors, starting out in this class with, Al Williams as our blue suitor, who was incredible. And, a lot of, how well we did through training was, a direct correlation with the fact that Al was, watching out for us. So yeah, no, I made it through, and No, I thought the training at the 19th was incredible.
So, fun fact
Yeah.
is Al Williams still teaches out here at Kirtland. I work with him today.
I need to look him up. Every now and again, I get curious. I was like, I need to reach out and find him.
And I can send you his phone number.
Mm-hmm. Please do.
So, y'all both checked out the first episode with Danny Blythe and Brian Belden. Would y'all say that it was? Would y'all say it was comparable? The same reception that or reaction y'all got from going from student on your check ride to getting your patch, your fourth patch, and then it's just a whole different beast in the ops squadron. I mean, even before you got there.
So for me, I was similar to Danny. They said Danny was in the class ahead of me, so we checked out right about the same time. Him just a little bit ahead. I knew my deployment date about halfway through my 19th training, not quite as fast as Danny did, but yeah, I already had my deployment date, and so I can't really. I listened to that podcast, and I really had to sit there and think. It's like I can't remember. I tell the story as if my first flight was out of training was in Iraq, and I think that's true. But I do have that recollection of like being on a flight for the first time, not in training, and going, "Oh my God, this is nice," and I can just sit in the window and relax, and it's a whole different feeling. There may have been one flight in there. I can't quite remember, but I was
Okay.
I was out processing the 19th, in processing the 4th, and out processing the base to deploy all at the same time. So I had 3 checklists all at once. I checked out November 16th of 2006 and was on the rotator November 28th.
Okay.
So
What
I
about
can't
you, Ben?
Yeah, I can't remember exact dates, but I was the same way. Like, I literally halfway through my training, Chris Jetty was the superintendent of the 4th. I was going to the 4th. He would literally every flight we had to fly out of the 4th. So I'd be downstairs in the hooch, going over my checklist, doing my weight and NEW and everything else. And he'd come in there and tell me like, "Hey man, like here's your date for deploying. Hurry up. We're doing the math in my head. Like, man, with weather days and everything else, like, I hope I can make this." And eventually, yeah, I literally, Chad Reed gave my check ride. I passed it, started out processing the 19th, and processing the 4th, and then out processing the base. My first cherry flight was with Belden. Belden was a load. I was the gunner, all by myself, nobody else. So obviously the crew, but no other gunners, right? So I remember, like, it's kind of ashamed to admit it, but I remember like I'm trying to like move these boxes and bags around, and we half-ass tying shit down, me and Belden, and we start taxiing. And then Belden's like, "Hey, dude, are you supposed to have the 105 like up that high like that? Because the barrel's like down low." I was like, "Oh no, that's supposed to be stowed." Like, oh shit, so I'm stowing the 105 as we're taxiing, and of course this is right in front of the 4th. So anybody smoking out there would saw the 105 hanging down as we're taxiing. So I get it stowed, and get pressurization done over myself and everything else. And then we go into I think we went to like somewhere up north. We stopped, got gas. I can't remember exactly where. And then we go into St. John's. But the funny story prior to that is obviously because when I checked out, it's a pretty big deal. We went out and got super hammered at Howl at the Moon.
Mm.
So Howl at the Moon's closed down now, right? The swamp used to be there, all that, right? I think it's a taco joint now. But we get hammered at Howl at the Moon, and it's me, like Chris Martin. He's a 53 gunner. Goddamn, a couple other guys. I can't remember his name now, but whatever. We end up getting in a fight, I guess, outside Howl at the Moon. And it's just so funny because I don't remember the first fight. So basically, I'm standing between like my buddy Chris and these 2 other guys trying to come at him, and I'm holding both parties back, and I'm telling them like, "Hey man, like, back up. You don't want none of this. Like, just stop." And literally, like, I remember the guy looking at me. He's like, "Dude, shut up, or I'll whip your ass again." And I remember, like, inside, I heard that, and I'm like, "Whip my ass? Are you kidding me? I didn't whip my ass." And then literally him and like everybody there looks at me like, "Yeah, he literally just whipped your ass. Like, we just watched him beat you up." But I guess I got knocked out. I didn't even know that happened. So then I'm standing there. I'm like, "What?" So then I'm like, I got knocked. So I look at Chris. I'm like, "He whipped my ass." And Chris is like, "Yeah, dude, he whipped your ass earlier." I was like, "Huh?" So then right then, me and the guy start fighting. again, it's the second time. Uh, it turned out a little different. All said and done, though, I broke both my hands. I think I broke one of my toes too. And Chris Martin, the other guy, that dude bit his freaking ear off. It was insane. Bit a huge chunk out of it. So then we literally come back to my I was living with Hafer at the time. We come back to the house, pass out, forgot about it. Woke up in the morning and I'm like, dude, my fucking hands are swollen. He can't hear because all that blood went into his ear and clogged it up. So we ended up taking him to the emergency room, trying to get it fixed. And I think it was 2 days later, I think is when I deployed, or 2 or 3 days later. So my hands are still pretty messed up. So I wore gloves the whole time. So when we get to St. John's, like everybody's already weird because like through the crew brief, through everything, I'm wearing gloves. And everybody's like, why is this guy wearing gloves in the middle of fucking Florida? And then we get to the bars and I'm going to the bars with gloves on. And everybody's like, so finally, Ralph Courtney, he was the engineer. He's like, and Belden knew the story because Belden was in the dorm, lived with us. So it gets out. And so he's like, I remember he's shaking my hand. He's just squeezing tighter and tighter as he's shaking my hand, looking at me. And I'm like in pain because it's crushing my hand. And I'm like, fuck. So then finally I'm like, okay. So I pull his hand. He's like, all right, take your glove off. Let me see your damn hand. So I take my glove off and now my hand's like yellow where it's, starting to heal, but it's still pretty swollen and messed up. And he's like, dude, what the hell? Like, why would you deploy like this? I'm like, because if I went and told the doc, I'd get in trouble. Like, I'm not going to miss a deployment. Like, he's like, you sure you can load 105? I'm like, dude, I opened the crew entrance door, the right parachute door. I loaded all y'all's bags on, like, and I unloaded everything. I think I can do this. Like, I'm fine. So we end up, we did a couple more stops, literally just getting hammered the whole way. I'm like, dude, Gunships is awesome. We were just partying the whole time. We finally get to like our deployed location, meet the rest of the crew, and they got to tell the crew about my hands. So we end up, they took me out the next day for a pre-flight and they made me upload some 105s, cock the 40, because the 40 is notorious for being hard to operate with if you're not strong. So I'm proving that I can do that with my hand being broken. And I think I had to open the right parachute door a couple of times too. And they're like, all right, man, like, we should get on you about, fighting and all that stuff like that. But because you're deployed, you didn't miss your deployment, like, we'll kind of let it ride. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, that's fine with me. But yeah, so then we deployed. Also about that deployment though. So that was the one where Brian Belden was talking about the 25 running away.
Yeah, the runaway gun.
Yeah, so I was the gunner on that.
Okay.
So
Well,
so
recall your story.
So a little backstory on that. So at the time, you got to remember, we're baby gunners, and like you don't touch shit on a gunship unless your lead gun tells you to. So I mean, even when the pilot's like, "Hey, go ahead and put guns 1, 2, and 3 on the line," you're looking at your lead gun for him to tell you, right? He's the one giving you the authority to do it. So we're doing just a normal tweak. I'm operating the guns because I'm the baby gunner. I got to do everything. And that's when the gun started running away. But it was so loud when that gun started basically going at full rate and shooting all these rounds out, and then it's bumping off the stops. It's so loud, and then the insulation is touching the barrels, so it's catching on fire, and smoke's going through the aircraft, and the barrels are smoking now too, coming through the aircraft. So it's so loud. But it was Kenny Serban was the right scanner. He was the one yelling to pull to isolate the hydraulics. And I remember I heard him kind of, right, because it was so hard to hear, and I'm like, "Are you sure you meant isolate the hydraulics?" He's like, "Isolate the fucking hydraulics." And at that point, I was like, I'm pretty sure I heard him right. So then I isolated it, train wrecked it. And the crazy part was after it train wrecked, right, they still had to squirt the barrels with the fire extinguisher and everything else because it's catching the insulation on fire. The BMC's already out, all putting their chutes on. I'm just a baby gunner. I'm standing in the back out of it. I let Steve Haddon and Kenny Serban kind of handle it. And
hang on real quick. I'm gonna let you get right to that. But for those that don't know, the BMC is the Battle Management Center. It's where the sensors, the nav, the fire control officer, and the EWO all sit. They get air conditioning when nobody else in the back does. Go ahead.
So after that, I'm thinking, because I'm a baby gunner and I'm used to training, and if that happens in training, you're going home. And that's it, right? There's no way around it. So I'm thinking, hey, we're heading back. Cool. No. They're like, we can proceed. It's fine. We'll just go without 25 and we'll figure out how this happened, why it happened, and we'll write a checklist in flight. So that's what they did, man. They wrote a checklist in flight, gave us the procedures on how to fix it. We had a lot of rounds to clean up because it chewed up a bunch of rounds inside the ashes. So we cleaned all that up. We put the puzzle seal in the 25 to keep rounds from falling outside the aircraft because rounds are literally going out the aircraft.
Damn.
And then, go ahead.
I was going to say, from a gunner's perspective, you want to explain the ashes system. I'm working on a quick reference list
Yeah.
for those that aren't gunship folks.
So the ashes, it's just a big old, I guess, system that we put all the rounds into. So there's 3,000 rounds that go in there, and they're on a belt essentially, and so they get fed into the gun. And we have different, burst links we can select to shoot, different rounds amounts, and that's where it stores all the rounds, and it stores also all the brass in there also. So at the end of the night, when we come to land, maintenance can open that up and pull the brass out, reload in new ammo, and that's kind of it.
Cool. Thank you. Go ahead.
But no, I was just gonna say that night was intense. That was wild, crazy. Just I remember that just being like a new guy, like holy shit, that was my first like real crazy malfunction. And then I remember
Was that
thinking,
like your first night deployed?
it wasn't our first night, I don't think, but it was definitely like pretty soon or very early in the deployment. And
Okay.
just to put you like in my brain during that time, you got to think, man, Steve Haddon, he's been around forever. Kenny Serban, another dude been around forever. I can't remember the other gunner's name. So these dudes are like legends. So like, yeah, like that whole deployment, you're just getting grilled, question after question after question, and you're not going to get them all right, so they're grilling you on that, and you feel like an idiot, next to those guys. But more and more deployments like that, eventually, now you're the guy having to grill the new guys. Teach them.
Fast forward to
Right.
our deployment, Ben.
Yeah, true.
Brian, you either one of y'all are welcome to go with this, but Ben just kind of explained his first deployment. Brian, you want to talk about yours?
So my first deployment, Ben was on my gun crew. I kind of joked that trip, whenever we flew, peace broke out. So we actually went through that whole deployment, never shot a thing. The only shoot I did on that first trip was actually filling in on a different gun crew, and they put me in the window the whole time. So on my first trip, yeah, Spurlock, Dan Spurlock was lead gun, me, Ben, and then old Jesse Lee.
Yeah.
So Jesse, love you to death, buddy. And I'll kind of preface any story I tell about anyone on this podcast, it's because I love you to death and have only the fondest of memories, but I'll still dime you out. So somehow on that trip, so Jesse Lee was a former 53 guy. I'm straight out of the schoolhouse. To me, a little two-striper. A staff sergeant is God to me at the time. And Jesse Lee was, he was new to the fourth for his first gunship deployment, not his first deployment. He had been, again, many times on Pavlos. And I was just, we'll use this as an opinion, I was just his whipping post. He was angry and frustrated that whole deployment, and I was the easy target for him to take it out on. So he was on my gun crew. He was a staff sergeant. He was my roommate, and he was my new supervisor all at the same time. What could go wrong?
Yay, you.
Yeah, yay me. And again, him and I worked together for my entire time at the 4th through range ops, and again, we learned how to work together. And but it was a learning experience. On the last one episode with Danny and Brian, they talked about Caleb Mello, and Mello was his first trip as well. He was in my class at the 19th, and he would just wake up and be up. And I still remember he came over one day while we were still over at the on the Army side, at the Ed Pods or whatever we called it. He came and knocked on the door, and I answered it, and he wanted to go do something, and Jesse just got up and tore us a new one because he was trying to sleep. And then Caleb would just come over randomly throughout the rest of the deployment and knock on the door, and we would open it, and he would ask if I could come out and play, just to piss Jesse off, which was great. Another fun story with him is we learned that he had a ritual on his deployments. He did not masturbate for the first half of his deployment, so he was extra angry. And finally, I'd had enough of being a whipping post, and I was going to strike back a little bit. I found that out, so I would purposely just randomly throughout the evening or night just turn on porn on my laptop and just turn the volume up just to piss him off and get him that much more angry. And man, he would come unglued. In the air, the only real, memorable part of that deployment was we had one night we were near Ramadi, and I was in the window. Asta guy was our load, and for some reason, over there we all go on Zulu time, right? So it's offset from standard local time, and it was, so in our heads it was whatever time it was, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and again, I'm a brand new kid, maybe. So November 28th. So I'd been there about a month, and I just remember all of a sudden, illumination. Arty flares just start popping off all over the city. I remember counting 25 of them. All the defensive systems are blaring in our ears. All of a sudden, 50 cal tracers start coming up. Tracers start going everywhere, and
Right.
I'm scared shitless. Asta guy's losing it. And I'm looking at every one of those arty flares, just trying to make sure that none of them are actually coming up at us. And I remember Jesse went over and pulled the port cover off the right paratroop door. And I remember hearing him go, "Holy shit." And that's the moment when I got scared. Because, this dude's been shot down twice. He knows what he's talking
Right.
about. Now he's scared. I'm pissing my pants. And then I remember the EWO, Burke, piped in. He go, "Hey, guys, it's midnight local." And that sort of all of a sudden shut everything down. Everybody was calm. But, 50 cal tracer, we ended up finding out it was a tank blasting it in the air. That could reach up and touch you.
Yeah.
I think that was the only real moment we had on that trip that, as far as flights and combat went, that was any sort of memory. For our crew, that was a super quiet trip. The Battle of Najaf was at the end of our trip, and we were the one crew on the ground. I was pretty bitter about that. And then,
So
we had also
hold on though.
Yeah.
So you got to explain why we were on the ground, because that was supposed to be our mission.
Yeah. So Ben had just gone home and came back because your dad had passed away, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And then our EWO at the time, or sorry, not our EWO, our FOCO, Brett DeAngelis, had walking pneumonia. So we had two, Ben was gone or had just gotten back. We had a couple people to NIF. We missed the last great GWOT gunship shoot of the time period because of Ben. So I blame him.
So yeah. So 100% true. So what had happened is my dad died, so I flew home. But because of the time, we're deploying hot and heavy, and we're not getting guys checked out fast enough. For every 10 guys they'd send us, they'd wash out, half of them. And then half of those guys that did make it went to NIF or had issues happen. They had to go to NCO Academy or, some other PME. And so I'm literally home texting back to the guys deployed like, "Hey, am I just going to go back to Hurlburt? What's the deal?" And they're like, "No, we got nobody to replace you, brother. You got to come back." I'm like, so spent 2 weeks and then flew back. So I had just gotten back when that mission dropped, and I didn't want to fly. I was like, "I don't want to fly. This is stupid." So I basically kind of helped talk the crew into saying, give it to the new guys that just showed up. That was their first freaking shoot, or their first flight. So I was giving to the new guys.
Bill Bevel, that was his first mission.
Yeah, so most of those guys, they blew their wad that night. I mean, that was the coolest shoot they ever had, and they've never been able to reach that because they literally leveled an entire city that night.
Damn. So, having heard, stories from both of your first deployments, in any preference, whoever wants to, what was your initial thought, the night before your first stop, and what was your, ending thought after the day you left that first deployment?
For me, I didn't know what to expect. I guess I really didn't have a feeling one way or the other before the first op. But I still remember, getting off the rotator. Everyone's got their disco belts on, their reflective belts. And I remember, again, I'm just showing up to Iraq for the first time. And in my mind, it was the wild, wild west. And I remember everyone had their disco belts on, and I'm on the bus, and I'm like, fuck you, I'm not wearing this in a combat zone. Get bent. And I was corrected on that very quickly.
There's always a lieutenant that needs to make captain somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, we had a fun one. I'll tell this story real fast. It was me and Spurlock, and Brian Billingsley was our engineer at the time. We were on pre-flights that trip, and remember the like Air Force wide exercises they used to do where you had to be in your body armor. We fell outside the Air Force, for those deployments, so we didn't have to do it. And if you remember, our old the AFAC we had at the time before we moved over to our ramp, was over by, I think it was an F-16 unit. And we were pre-flighting, so we were in the pre-flight van, and we went to back up. It was at night. We were getting something, and all of a sudden we see this dude walk straight behind the vehicle backing up, all kitted out. And we yelled, told Sergeant Spurlock, stop, and this dude walked up and just starts questioning us about why we're not in our body armor, this and this and that. And, Dan gave our standard, we don't work, we're not under the Air Force chain of command. We don't have to comply with this, blah, 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 blah. And it was a major. And this guy knew he had nothing at that point. But he just looked at us and went, and in this like command voice, you realize you're in a vehicle that requires a spotter to back up. Like, that's all he was going to try to hang this on. And I still remember Spurlock looked at him and went, yeah, we did. That's why we didn't run you over. Why did you walk behind the vehicle? He's like, well, I was just trying to prove the point. He goes, so you walked behind a moving vehicle to prove the point? What if we didn't stop? You went to college. You're supposed to be smart. And just rolled the window up. We backed out and left. And this dude was just rah, rah, getting all spun up. It was that moment that I realized, okay, all the things you talked about on episode 1 with the culture and the environment over there with the people that don't actually do anything. That was my first moment of, oh, okay, I see what's going on. You have to find something to feel important.
Right.
So
Ben?
my first time, a little different because we took a plane over. So we're just, literally partying our nuts off every night and all over the country to get there. And the first night in, I'm hungover as shit, probably still drunk. We're flying. I'm in the right scanner window talking to Belden, and he's basically telling me like, "Hey, you see the AAA out there? Like, yeah, that's nothing. Don't even worry about calling that out. Just gonna bog down comms. That AAA there, that one's a little closer. I would notify the crew about that one. So we do, and there's just AAA everywhere out there, oil fires and everything else. We fly over Iraq. We end up landing in Kuwait. And again, you're deployed. There's HESCO barriers. Everybody's kitted out. It's like crazy. I'm thinking like, damn, this is wild, man. We're deployed. This is crazy. I call home, talk to my mom. Kind of not supposed to, but I tell her where I'm at. So then she's like, "Oh, you're in Kuwait. Your cousin lives there. Like, you should call her up. Here's her number and get her to come on base." So funny story is her brother is actually there too. He's works on base also. And he gets a hold of her. She comes on base and eats lunch with us, her and her 2 kids. And I'm like, this is a fucking combat location. Like, we're having families come on base. Like, what the hell?
Combat-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, of course, we're flying missions that are going into Iraq. But, so yeah, that kind of like tamed everything down. And then it was, the rude awakening whenever that, like I said, that 25 ran away on us. We had a couple other, crazy things happening, getting shot at. So yeah. But, yeah, it was just weird though. Like, because then after that, we were still deploying to Kuwait. So I remember my second deployment, I took a rotator over, and we get off at the Kuwait International Airport, and they're like, basically one guy's, we're all loading on the bus, right? We're on the bus. They're like, keep the covers, or the curtains over the windows so they can see us, and keep your heads down so the sniper can't get you. And then they tell the guy sitting in the front seat, they're like, can you drive standard? He's like, no, sir. They're like, all right, get to the back of the bus. We need somebody who can drive standard to get in the front in case the driver gets shot. You can, pull him out and then you can drive it. I'm like, what the fuck, man? It's not that serious. Like, there's people who live in this city that are Americans. Like, it's not that serious. But yeah, that's how they wanted to play it. Like, it was a real deployment. Like I said, and then I think me, Dante Ostagai. Yeah, I think he was one that was there with me at the time, and I can't remember the other gunners, but we were the last crew in Kuwait to go into Iraq. So we stayed behind in Kuwait, ran like the last mission out of Kuwait while everybody else forward deployed to Iraq. And it was this big OPSEC, like, don't tell anybody we're going into Iraq, and we're, you can't tell your family we're doing it, and it's this whole secret squirrel thing. And what does Air Force Times do?
They
Welcome,
published it.
first
I remember that
gunships
one guy tore up.
enters. Yeah, yeah. They're like the first gunship to enter the Iraq war. So then you had all these spouses like, where the fuck are you at? Like, you're lying. You're not deployed. They just had the first gunship enter the war in
Yeah,
Iraq. We're like, no, we've been in Iraq this whole time. Like, what are you talking about? We just fly out of Kuwait, but we're there,
they
And that was a
worded that
fun
article really weird.
dude. But that was a funny thing too that just like blew my mind was like maintainers, right? I mean, they load
Oh
us.
god, yeah,
They ammo came to upload our aircraft with all this ammo, and then we land in the night, and we dump off, a whole trailer load full of ammo. Like you gotta kind of understand. Well, we didn't shoot that shit in Kuwait, right? But we'd be in the chow hall, and they're like, "Dang, is that like a that?" They're watching a footage of us just like laying waste in a city, and they're like, "Man, is that like a Marine gunship or something?" And we're like, brother, you just saw us upload all that ammo and then throw all this brass out. How are you not putting this together? That was us. Like we were the guys who did that. Like whatever. But we couldn't say anything, so we're just like, it's fine. I think eventually, like guys like uh not Fahey, Big Daddy. Yeah, I think Big Daddy was the one. He started like basically having a laptop and he pulled it back to maintenance and like show them like footage of what we did, just to so they could have a sense of purpose and pride. Like, hey, this is what you guys are
right.
doing. Like we're not flying sorties in Kuwait, brother. Like we're going other places.
Yeah, this isn't a training line.
Yeah.
So let's go back to our story, our first deployment, real fast on
Yeah,
our Ben, because I got a good story I want to tell since we brought up
Let me
Off the Guy.
gonna bring up pinworms.
No, but we do. We do.
whatever y'all. Hey, we're gonna
We do
like
Penguins
this.
next, but
This
this
can
is
roll straight into the gunship or gunner freestyle that I was gonna give y'all.
yeah.
So it's y'all's. Y'all tell whatever y'all want to talk about.
So on our first trip, the load master's in the back, and they're laying down and looking at the bubble all night. It's a bitch on your neck. And a lot of times it's just hard to stay awake back there. So, loads would get out and take a break. And I don't even remember what caused it, but I remember Ben finally did Ben things and just went, "Hey, Dante, if you stay in the bubble the entire time, the entire trip, and you never get out and take a break, ever, I'll buy a keg. I'll buy you a keg when we get home." You remember this, Ben?
I do remember that.
And so, got to his credit, he did it. The only time on that trip he got out of the bubble was actually why Ben was home, for his father passing away, and we were staying out after sunrise. So Spurlock made him get out of the bubble and take a break. But we kept that from Ben until after Dante got his reward. But the funny part about the reward was we get back and we're setting it up. Ben goes out and makes good on his bet. We get the keg. We bring it back to the dorms and get all the ice in the tub to set it up. And Dante gets put in handcuffs because apparently he was supposed to be in, I forget what they call it, the Air Force Alcoholic Rehab Program.
Adapt.
ADAPT. Before he left on that deployment, he was supposed to be like in person, in processed into ADAPT, and he hopped on the plane and deployed. So we're getting back, setting this keg up, and security forces rolls into the dorms, puts him in cuffs, and drags him out. And Ben's like, "I did it. I bought him. It's not my fault he can't be here for it." And we drank his beer all night. And
I have no idea. Like, I don't know. What would you say your average flight durations were that trip?
that trip, probably 8 hours. I mean, I remember we hit.
Yeah, we were doing the Baghdad 500s.
Yeah, we hit
Okay.
200, and I want to say we hit 230 hours in 2 months was what we did on that trip.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, as a loadmaster, one keg of beer is not enough to justify the long-term, spinal issues that are being that I'm dealing with now. It would have been like several months worth of it.
Yeah.
But kudos to Ben for you following through on that. And I always appreciated when you guys would give me a break.
All right, Ben, should we tell pinworms, or you want to take it and tell one?
Oh, you take it, man. That's yeah, that was a funny time.
So the pinworm story again, it was such an, and I'm the brunt of it, so that's what makes this story more fun. It was such a well done thing. New guy, first time overseas, you're gonna get messed with. And I, to this day, don't know the breadth of who all was involved with setting this up, but I know it was at least Jesse Lee, and that he had also gotten Mello involved, which was a key part of this. But so we're on the plane one night, again, flying the Baghdad 500, and Asta guy starts talking about he keeps itching. Here we go. He's always itching. His butt's cheeks itch, his legs itch, and all this shit. And I kind of chimed in, and I was like, well, it's could be the laundry detergent they use here, like Tide makes me itch, and da da da. And I remember Jesse popped in and planted the seed. He started it off right there, and just went, it could be pinworms. And of course, we're like, what the fuck is that? He's like, yeah, it's these worms that you get that crawl inside your asshole. And they get worse at night, but they got to go in and give you deworming and all. It's crazy shit. You get it over here. If you don't Lysol your bed when you first get your room, if your hands get dirty over here and you bite your nails. And I'm sitting there as this young kid going, no one told me to fucking Lysol my bed. I bite my nails. So like the seed was planted, but I was
y'all are looking at Jesse as this experienced vet from 53s that has all these rotations, and you're like, he's preaching the gospel.
Yeah, he knew the things to say, and he's like, Brian bites his nails. Brian didn't Lysol his bed. I know, I'm his fucking roomie. So he started planting it, but I was like, I'm not. My ass doesn't itch. Like I'm fine. As time goes on, and the food over there, you get your first good real taste of diarrhea, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, but now my ass is itching a little bit. And it just planted for, a week or two. And then remember, Ben, we had the old movie room with the black couches over at the alert facility. I went in there one night.
Oh yeah.
And just Mello, it's just Caleb by himself in there watching a movie. So I sat down, and again, he's from my generation. He's from my class. Like he's my safe space. He's my confidant. So we're watching a movie, and finally I get the courage to bring it up. And I'm like, hey, have you heard about this pinworm thing? And I kind of told him a little bit of what I heard. And he goes, oh, yeah. Yeah, I have them. I had to I went over to the dock last week. And then my head, I'm just like, oh, fuck, no. Like, this is real. And he goes, yeah, they'll give you, they just told me to, take some rubbing alcohol and cotton swabs, and you rub your asshole down with it once in the morning and once at night, and you'll be fine. And I was sold. I was convinced. And so I went to Dante and I worked up a plan, because back then we were flying 3 days on and we had 1 day off. So we were already like, we're not going to tell anybody, but we got to go to the flight dock. And so I'm pretty sure it was Doc Yao at the time. And so we hopped the bus to go over to the flight dock, both of us together. We go in, and it's this female Navy nurse at the front, and we're signing in, and she just kind of goes, "Oh, what's going on?" or however she worded it. And Dante just goes, "Do you have a male doctor we could talk to?" And she goes, "No, there's only one male here, and he's actually out getting dinner right now, so you're stuck with me. So what seems to be the problem?" And in Dante fashion, it's hard to do this without video, but he kind of had a way of putting his arms up and shrugging his shoulders. And he just came right out with it. And he just goes, "We got worms in our butts." And the look on this poor nurse's face is like, what the fuck? And I'm just like mortified. And so she asked us a couple questions, goes to the back, comes back, asked us a couple more questions, goes to the back, comes back a third time. And she's like, "Why don't you just come with me?" So we go to the back, and Doc Yao was back there, and she's got WebMD up, her doctor's books out, and it was right then that I went, we've been fucking had. We've been had. Dante was still convinced. I was like, we've been had. And so she asked us a couple more questions, and she's like, I mean, I could, I told her about what Caleb had said about the rubbing alcohol and the cotton spot, and the look on her face. She goes, "Please tell me you're not doing that." It's like, no. Yeah. She's like, "You'll be bleeding out of your ass like by tomorrow. we're going to have much bigger problems. And if he was told that, you need to send him in here. And I was like, at this point, I don't think that's really happening. So
But
Jeez.
he did it with such a straight face, I'm sure,
did the
as
whole
only
thing.
only Mello could.
Yeah.
Like, you never knew.
And finally she goes, look, I could give you a deworming pill, but you're going to be deniff for like 4 days. And I was like, I think Ben, you were actually home at the time.
Yeah.
And DeAngelis was down. So I was like, we can't do this. And so she gives us these 2 Ziploc baggies with the wooden popsicle stick tongue depressors and Scotch tape, and tells us to wrap the tape sticky side out around the tongue depressor and stick it against our asshole at night when it's the
No.
itchiest, and bring it back in so they can look at it under a microscope. And we ended up going home, and I started hatching my revenge, and I sort of went, okay, Dante, we've been had. And it was fucking well done. Like, epic. We know Ben's gone. DeAngelis is deniff. She just told us if we take the deworming pill, we're deniff for a week. So we went. So our pilot at the time, favorite pilot ever flew with was Greg Hahn, and we went straight to his hooch, knocked on the door, and was like, "Hey, we just got back from the flight dock about this whole pinworm situation, and they went ahead and gave us deworming pills, but now we're deniff for the next week." And just the blood built. He just went, this is fucking out of hand, and marches straight over to fucking Jesse Lee's tent and just fucking starts chewing him a new asshole. And I finally just stepped in. I was like, actually, Major Hunt, we're just kidding. We didn't do that. We just had to do something in return. And he just like, this is fucking ridiculous, and walks off. But yeah, no, and then I remember about a week later, we saw the doc at the chow hall, and she's like, you never brought me the sample. And Dante just goes, yeah, nah, they were just fucking with us. But it was a very well planted story that sent us into the flight dock saying we got worms in our butt.
I'm just really surprised that not one of you stuck a popsicle stick with tape in your rectum.
Nope.
That's good stuff, dude.
Dude, so yeah, that was
love
that was like my entire experience with being a gunship guy. Was like half the time when we're back there flying these black holes, somebody would start saying something, and it's like 50-50 shot. It's bullshit or it's real. And there was even times during some of these shenanigans where I even started like, fuck, this is real. Started believing it, and then I would like walk up next to the guy telling the story, then I'd be laughing and like continue the story. Then I'm like, oh, he's kidding around. I'm like, fuck, I was almost gonna get got on this story too. Like, shit.
Yeah, the Hurlburt storyteller hats were a real thing.
Yeah, that's
you never knew what was real and what wasn't.
For real. Like, my first trip with Danny, Jim Hollenbach, Cosmo, and Dave Couch, like I had no idea what was factually correct and what was, myth. You take it all in, and there's just no way. Like, the first night we go out, and there's like some inaccurate AAA, and I called it, and the gunner's like, there is no need to talk about shit that doesn't matter or affect us. And I'm like, well, okay, but I'm also the idiot that showed up that brought my mess kit on my first deployment. Because nobody told me. Like, the gunners at least had a gunner that would tell you the truth. I think, like, Jeremiah Carlson was our functional when on my first trip, and he was like, yeah, just take everything it says to take. And so, like, there I roll into Afghanistan with all of this extra stuff, and I'm just like, what do I do with it? And he's like, it's gonna sit in a container until you go home. I was like, okay, sure, whatever you guys say. And then over time you start to understand what's BS and what's not, but it was good stuff. So Go ahead, Ben.
No, I don't know how many times I almost got busted for like leaving my herbs in my car and not taking it. Because I would leave herbs behind or anything I didn't need. Like, and then I got to the point where I found an ISU. Aaron Cross was out there, and we found an ISU that we could just store shit in. So I started storing half my shit there. And then when I'd leave with just a backpack. And when I deployed, I'd deploy with just a backpack and didn't have anything else, because when I get there, we'd open up the ISU and get my shit out.
You ever on y'all's trips? I'm sure y'all did, but you find one of those treasure trove ISUs that has all of the new nice shit and brand new blankets and everything you could ever want.
I
So I
never
was
did. No.
I was fortunate enough. I probably did almost as many TDYs as I did deployments. I was always fucking TDY or something. And I did a bunch of tail swaps because tail swaps are just fun. You just get wasted the whole way there and the whole way back. So I was always
Yeah,
about the tail swaps. So because I did tail swaps, I was always able to go into resources and just load up, like 3 Pelican cases full of Gucci shit. And then when I'd get there, you're the guy who has a Pelican case full of all the Gucci shit, so everyone wants to be your best friend because they want a new watch and new sunglasses, new gloves, flight suits, whatever. Um, so yeah, I always had access to that. That was freaking awesome. I loved it.
so speaking of resources, like that was always a perfect scenario of who do you know? Because even though they may have gotten enough for the entire unit, they controlled that shit like it was gold. I don't know that
Facts.
that and
It
yeah.
was. I remember getting to the 60 unit. Uh, and again, I'll try to keep everything gunship focused, but I got to the 60 unit
No,
and
you're good.
it was like I sat down one day and they're like, "Hey man, we're doing this order for the unit. So come." They just had like LA police gear pulled up, and they're just like, "What boots do you want? All right, what flashlight do you want?" It was just like
Yeah,
made to order because again, a 60 unit was much smaller on the amount of people we had flying than a gunship unit.
right,
So yeah, it was like I could just made to order what I want. Versus you were good luck getting anything out of fourth
right.
resource.
Yeah, and so like when I left the fourth, I went to Cannon and went to the 524th and flew inside medium, and I got out there another small unit, and like my first day, I think I was a student still, and they're like, "Hey, come over, and order your stuff," and I was like, "Okay." I had no idea, but because it was all civilian clothes and stuff then, and I just was like, "Yeah, I'll just take whatever." And they're like, "No, you have to go in and actually tell us every single thing you want." And I was like, "I don't know how this works." And like the first day there, they give me like this, I don't know, like $600-700 Dakine rolling body bag, and then like a couple $100 Kelty backpack, and I'm just like, are you serious? Like, I get stuff that is functional, and because you never wore your stuff on the road, it was everything had to be purchased. I mean, and then trying to find normal clothes that were FR was the biggest nightmare. But you did, and it was what it was. But anyway, yeah. So getting the cool stuff. Who was the? I don't know if y'all remember. Who was the gunner that stabbed their
Dogger.
hand open with
Oh,
the infidel when
Eric.
y'all got the infidels?
Eric. God dang it, he's the one who owns the bar. He owns uh
Bischoff?
Bischoff. Yeah, that was Bischoff.
Okay, I thought it was a female gunner. I don't know why.
No, that was Bischoff.
Okay, and they stopped issuing them like after that.
Yeah. Yeah. So funny story with Bischoff too. I can't think of his name earlier. He was the one that was with us when we got in that fight outside of Howl at the Moon. And again, I'm blacked out. I don't remember, but he talked to him and Hafer like best friends. He calls Hafer and tells Hafer like he's like, dude, I'm not gonna. I don't ever want to like hang out with Naro again. Like I never want to go anywhere with him or have him again. He's like, because I mean, it's just bad to admit, but like we beat the living shit out of those two guys. So like for the whole time, I remember we were all like searching the web, looking for a newspaper of like two dead guys because I remember we saw them getting on the gurney, and we're like, oh fuck, these guys haven't even moved. Like, oh shit. But in our defense, he bit my friend's ear off. So we're like, yeah, we're definitely gonna whip your ass for that.
Yeah. So were they civilians?
I, dude, honestly, probably not. They're probably
You never.
military guys.
Yeah, okay.
Um, but yeah, it was just we were so wasted that night. It's ridiculous. It's a funny story
So
too about the
yeah,
about
go
the
ahead, please.
like the cake stories and stuff. Is I had a house, so I had a house with a pool and everything, and so usually we'd come back from deployments and it was always a party at my house. Like literally, we had one room that had a freaking stripper pole. So
And it fell over and hit me in the head once.
yeah, so like of course when the party starts, everybody's like, "Why do you have a stripper pole?" Girls are like acting like that. Then of course, couple of drinks later, a couple hours later, eventually somebody's on it, somebody's in there having fun. And I don't remember how many times I'd come home from a flight because I was always flying. So I'd come home from a flight, walk in through the garage, and some dude that I don't even know was like, "Hey man, beer's in the refrigerator. They cooked a pulled pork. You know, it's delicious." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's my fucking house, bro. Like I know what's going on here." But yeah, it was just everybody. My house was always a party house. I don't know why.
It's like you know, like you said that you were gone so much that though you're stateside and you walk upstairs and pass MCC and someone's like, "Are you new? Would you like a tour?" But it's because you've been on the road 300 out of 365 days for the last year.
Yeah,
I think
dude. I
it was
think
always funny. You could tell when someone just got back
Right.
by how many times they used fuck in one sentence. Like your first week out of a deployment, fuck's a noun, a preposition, a verb. Like you could use it 4 to 5 times in one sentence. That's a very versatile word.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, yeah, the amount of times somebody said fuck, you could kind of tell how long they'd been home.
so. Kind of what's crazy about it too is like when you go through training and you're shooting over, you know, Bravo 7 or Alpha 77 or, you know, 78 the water range, whatever, right? There's all these rules and all these things you got to do. You know, round jettison just took forever and it was crazy. You had to redo this briefing and all this stuff. And then you get deployed and you're like, "Hey, I got to fire to fire. What do I do?" And they're like, "Throw out the back." You're like, "Right here." Like, "Throw it out. You're good. Send it." You're like, "Damn, that was that." So like deploying was the best time ever because everything was just chill. Like it was literally so easy. But when you came home, that's when it was like, "Oh shit, I haven't studied any of this stuff." So usually before your flight, you're scramming, trying to study all the freaking water range restrictions, and God forbid if you got to go do flares over the water or something. You know, now you're studying that crap that you haven't done
Right.
in years. Um, I think I only did flares over the water like maybe twice in my career. Um, Training, you know, never did it real world. But
I don't know that I ever actually launched flares in training. My first time launching them was my first flight in Afghanistan when we did a flares check.
Well, no, he's talking
Oh,
about
no.
shooting.
Oh,
shooting
yeah,
flares in the-
yeah.
I never,
Okay, yeah.
I never did for gunships either. I did it in 60s, but never gunships.
Yeah. And that was a shit show when I first did it because like you'd throw out like fucking 6 of them and one of them would work. Like they were all
Right.
duds.
Right, yeah, sitting there uncontrolled in some, you know, hill somewhere for ammo storage.
Yep.
Yeah, that you know, I'm glad you brought that up because you know I talked about that on the first episode that it was just there's the way shit got done, the way you did things downrange, and then there was the formal training unit and the check ride way. And it's not that they were, you know, diametrically opposed or anything. It's just there's an inherent element of risk. It seemed like that you were okay with living with downrange versus everything to be perfect stateside. I don't know if that's how y'all felt, but for
Well,
me,
well,
it always felt different downrange.
Yeah,
And
things
there was
like
just, it was more
things like walking around on taxi, right? Or the
Right.
one that got me pulled into the you know, the aircrew, whatever, our gear room, and Jesse Lee
Life
gave me
support.
wall to wall counseling was because, you know, everybody else was unplugging their oxygen mask, right? What was the reg? Engine start up to engine shut down. You know,
Right.
overseas, everyone, if you wait till engine shut down to start policing your gear up, you're going to get chewed out because, like, everyone's ready to go. It's time to go to chow, get your shit, and get moving. And man, that because it was the reg, Jesse took heavy offense to me doing that, and straight up told me, "Don't fucking let me catch you doing that again." And I'd been over on filling in for another crew for Tamal. She had been home. She went home. This is that first deployment. She went home. Her dad got hurt that trip, and I was filling in, and yeah, I started getting chewed out for leaving my oxygen mask plugged up, and then go back to my crew, and I'm in the window, and I'm, you know, we're taxiing, we're turning onto the ramp, and I'm just kind of like, well, just get this done, and click, undid it, and man, I felt the look, and I look over, and I just see Jesse staring at me, and I was like, God damn it. And oh yeah, we went into the flight room, and yeah, I got the 20th SOS treatment in our equipment room that night over oxygen masks, you know, because again, it's just one of those things that we all understood the requirement and why the regs were written that way, but you know, overseas things were just some of the oddities and some of the little things. Yeah, they weren't applicable, and that was kind of one of the other stories that I pre-talked to Ben about was on that trip, and this was a rule we still lived. We definitely lived by over there. You don't have the ramp open on taxi, right? When you're on the active, and so we're taxiing in, and to his credit, we all in the back thought we were off the active. For some reason, we had thought we were landing on the runway closer to our ramp. So we felt ourselves turn off the runway, and we just kind of went, cool, we're on the taxiway. So Dante starts putting the ramp down, and we turn again, and now we're back on the active, like back taxiing down to get to the ramp. And Ben comes walking back. He just goes, hey, man, I don't think we're supposed to have the ramp open on the active. And that was our first moment. We looked back and realized we were on the active and went, oh, shit. And Dante just goes, it's not a big deal. And you could not have better comedic timing. He said that, and right after he said that, one of the engine port covers that are stored back there just starts fanning in the wind and just gets sucked out the back of the plane. Onto the active in Balad with two F-16s on final approach behind us. And I still remember Dante just staring out the back. And Ben finally goes, hey, you going to tell the engineer? And Dante, in the most pouty child, scared voice, just went, I don't want to. But we were like, you've got to, man. What's going to be worse is if you don't tell them and one of those gets sucked into that F-16 intake where you're fucked. So we told them, and they, waved those 16s around, and airfield management came out and found it. And, we had to go do the walk of shame. Well, Dante did. I went with him. And when he got the inlet cover back from the airfield management, just a little airman there, and he called him, gave him the intake back and just looked at him and went, you fucking trash hauling loadmaster. And I thought Dante was going to go over the top of that counter. And I was like, nope, you deserve that. And I grabbed him by the collar and shoved him out the door.
Yeah. I'll never
That's
forget
good
that.
stuff. That is really good stuff. So kind of just to stay in this vein for a minute, I would love to hear y'all's thoughts or stories about like the maintenance risk we would take downrange versus stateside.
Dude, yeah, I'll go with this one. Like, that was the part that blew my mind. Is like, when you're stateside, they're like, hey, engine 3 looks a little wet. Cancel the mission. We're not going to do it because it's training, right? Then you get deployed. I mean, it was insane, some of the shit that we just push with. Like, I remember one time, I think we're in Afghanistan. No, we're in Afghanistan, and I signed up for this fucking marathon, which is ridiculous. So it was the Boston Marathon, but I realized that if you did the marathon out there, they gave you the actual Boston Marathon medal and the ribbon and the T-shirt, everything like you ran the Boston Marathon. I know there's never a time in my life where I'm going to qualify for the fucking Boston Marathon. So I have a medal and a shirt now. So now people are like, hey, you actually qualified to run the Boston? I'm like, I have the fucking medal, don't I? Right? So I went to go run this Boston Marathon, and I ended up, surprise, I ended up like hairline fractured both of my feet. I never ran that far in my life. I actually did a pretty solid time on it too, but I broke both my feet in the process. We're not supposed to fly the next day, but surprise, we end up getting alerted. We got to go fly. I'm walking to the aircraft, and I remember like each step is just fucking killing me because both my feet are broke. But I know at the time, if I go into the flight dock and go to NIF, it's going to cause a crazy shitstorm because they're going to be like, why were you running a marathon? Da-da-da. They're going to ban it for everybody. I'm not going to do that to everybody. I'll just fucking deal with it, right? So I'm walking the aircraft. Right then, the failing starts going off. And I hear the failing, going off. I'm looking up in the sky, and I'm watching the fucking rocket coming. And it's like right over our heads. And it's something you're looking at, and you're like, man, that looks freaking cool. And you just keep staring at it. And then that little thing in your brain that tells you, like, hey, idiot, it's going to blow it up, and you're standing right under it. It's going to fall on you. But at the time, again, my feet are broken, and I'm like, I don't fucking care. Like, I don't give a shit. So I'm just continuing walking the aircraft, and I hear all the ding, 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 ding. The shrapnel's falling, but it's landing on top of the gunship. So I get to the plane and just kind of lay on my back, and I'm laying there trying to catch my breath, and I'm like, fuck. And I'm like, well, this is pretty stupid. I'm on a plane that's full of fucking ammo and fuel as shrapnel's falling on top of the plane. I'm like, and so of course maintenance is yelling like, get to the bunker, get to the bunker. I'm like, fuck you, my fucking feet are broke. I'm staying here. Like, fuck it. So finally they do the all clear. They come to the aircraft. I'm thinking, hey, we're gonna pack our shit up and we're gonna head in because there's shrapnel on top of the aircraft. Like I heard it hit. So I'm telling maintenance, I'm telling the pilot, and they're like, dude, this is an active tick. Like we're gonna fucking wave it. We're just gonna roll. I'm like, we don't even know. Like that shrapnel could be in the engine. Like we have no idea. Like what the damage is on top of the aircraft. They're like, fuck it. We're starting up. We're going. So that's what we did. We started up. We flew that mission. So I remember I told the gunners that night. I said, "Hey, like, dude, my fucking feet are killing me. I just popped in the Tylenol. I was like, I'm gonna just lay it back here on the ramp. If you guys fucking need me, like, come get me." And we're still in parking when I say this. I end up passing out. Next thing you know, I'll wake up to a gunner like shaking my leg, and he's like, "Hey, man, like, we're done. You can head in." I was like, "Oh shit, all right." So I was like, "Cool." They took my advice and we canceled the fucking mission like we should have. They're like, "No, we fucking flew like an 8-hour mission." I was like, what was I doing? They're like, "You were sleeping the whole time, bro. Like, you're good." But yeah, I had a fever and stuff. I broke both legs or both my feet, just passed out. But that was the kind of the thing that I thought it was weird with gunships. Is like just the things that we would press with deployed and the shit we would do with the home stations you would never do.
Oh yeah, guaranteed. You think of how many times on a 19th line you're out there with certain engineers and nothing's within limits. It's got a no leak limitation or whatever, and then you get the magic 7-level rag that makes it go away long enough for you to not pay attention to it anymore. But then you go down range and you're fighting shit. You start engines, you get back on the plane, and you're looking out the back, and it's shit and sparks. And then there's like a whole dick measuring contest on, well, is it carbon buildup or is it metal and metal? And you're like, it's metal and metal. We're like, no, I think it's carbon buildup. And you take off and you do it anyway for, an op that has 5 cast support assets already before you even get there. They're going to hold you 15 miles out and, for noise abatement and never invite you over. And you're just going to be a 13-man drone.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, the risk, the risk to me, like, I understand if it's a tick. We have troops in contact, go, throw caution to the wind, get there. But it was, the latter part of Iraq when nobody was shooting, except unless it was blue on blue, and you just, like, you gambled because, for what reason? I mean, I never really understood the risk.
Yeah, so talking about that too, which was funny to me is because I remember I was on a deployment where we didn't shoot at all. Like, and we didn't shoot, not because we didn't want to or whatever. We didn't shoot because we had the wing boxes that were fucking falling off the aircraft, and then we had the floor that was cracked from excessive 40 and 105. So literally all we would do is fly and do orbits just so guys could sleep, which, awesome, whatever, I'll do that all night long. But it was just in your mind, you're thinking like, fuck, these wings can fall off at any second. And this floor is cracked to the point where we can't even shoot anymore because when they designed the gunship, nobody expected us to shoot that much. Like, these cooling limitations came out after we were already flying. Like, me and Jared Huseman were talking about it. Like, I remember going through training and not really discussing these limitations. And then later on coming through a gunner refresher course and learning about cooling limitations. Because even when we talked about them, they were like, yeah, you use those for home station, but deployed, fuck it, just do what you got to do. Which led into the floor cracking. Flying missions, every night wondering, hey, if we have to break, are these wings going to fucking stay on the aircraft or not? And then you got, pilots like, Bender, skipping the aircraft across the airspace. And you're flying it like it's a damn Porsche. And you're, hanging on, your cheeks are pulling off your face. And you're like, fuck, I hope these wings don't fall off tonight.
I remember when we were, in the 19th, it was some of our first training missions was when they started having the problem with the 105 base, the base plates.
Yep.
Whatever the gun would wrinkle, the whole plate was coming off the floor. That's a 2,000-pound gun that now the plate that mounts it to the plane is starting to bounce up, when you shoot it. Of course, in training, that was an immediate stop shooting, go back to base, but the craziest one I had as far as that, it's one thing, like, you sort of get protected from it, being enlisted, being down lower, but, you begin to start realizing that the relationship we had with maintenance in the gunship world at the time was not good.
Right.
Very not good. And it that went with me, to the 60 world. I actually had to get pulled in by the chief, and he was like, none of the crew chiefs think you hate them. You don't talk to them. You don't, it's here's the weapon. This is what happened. There's no, hi, how you doing? How's, and the reserves is a different world. And I was like, that's just the world I came from. If you start talking to a maintainer, that's going to come back to bite you. And that was sort of the premise of this whole event. It's deployed, and we went up one night, and what was the leaders on the locks at the time? I know, was it 72?
75 liters?
How many? 75 liters? I know
Yeah.
it was somewhere up there. It's huge, right? So, and I think for a regular C-130, it's like 15.
Yeah.
But we had to carry a lot more liquid oxygen because we had
because you almost had triple the crew.
Right, a lot larger crew. So, you see them out loading the locks on, right? And their astronaut reflective.
Yeah,
space.
their NASA suit.
Yeah, it's highly volatile, explosive. And one night we're out flying over Iraq, and they called back, and they're like, hey, this could be just an indicator thing, but we've lost 30 liters of locks in the last half an hour. We're going home. And again, they talked about it on the last part, like people would, open up the breech on the 105 and light up, that shit will explode. So we went home, brought it back, did the report, came back the next day, and basically nothing had happened. They just wrote it up like they always tended to do of, somebody just left one of the regulators in emergency. Bullshit.
But a lot of times those leaks, when you would have them, they would happen at pressure. They wouldn't happen on the ground, because I had that happen to me, several times.
Yeah. So I went up again, same thing, brought it back home. And this started a whole pissing contest, and Big Daddy was the DO over there at the time. I'm 90%, I could be wrong, but they got into a kind of a big kerfluffle about it and ended up deciding to send up one of the maintainers on a combat mission. And of course, then the engineers, were in a riot. Like, what the fuck is my job then? Why are we doing this? And then a little side quest to that whole event. At the time, the intel, Thorpe, and I forget who else, his girl, they had been itching to go on a flight with us and kept getting told no, because if we went down, they'd be a liability to the crew. But they'd all been through SEER and kept getting told no, and now they were going to let a guy who hasn't been through SEER go on an op. So they sort of, intel got their moment to stick it, and ended up getting a flight out of it. But again, this is all hearsay, as in I'm told the story because I wasn't the crew that night. But we took it the first 2 times, went up the third time, which we all know the third time you write up the same item is a big deal. Now you're impounded until it's fixed. So they go up that night, and apparently that maintainer just started singing. Oh, it's a converter problem. It's been a converter problem from day one, but the maintenance chief said that it wasn't, and we're not going to change it out because the air crews are saying this just to make us look bad.
Right.
And I was floored. I'm like, that's a different mindset, and it's a misunderstanding of our community and our jobs as a whole, like that we would, let alone the legal ramifications, which you could run into abandoning your post, cowardness in the face of the enemy, treason, whatever you want to call it, of abandoning teams on the ground, potentially under fire, because we want to make maintainers look bad. That was asinine to me. So it was crazy how some of those maintenance things happened, and how.
Why do you think it? I mean, it's just a guesstimate, but why do you think it became that as opposed to?
I don't know. I was a young 22-year-old, senior airman. Man, I eventually got my lead gun, and I had my one night in the dirt with the maintainers when I came out, and started having my crew start pre-flighting and pulled up the forms. And what was the gun inspection? The -6?
shit, I can't remember that, dude.
Their inspection was I can't remember, something like that. It wasn't in the forms that they had done their weapons inspection. So I leaned in the back of the plane and said, "Hey, knock it off. No point in doing this until they do theirs." And then I talked to the weapons guy about it, and he was just like, "Oh man, don't worry about it," and pencil whipped it right in front of me. And I was like, no, you at least have enough respect to take the forms back to the house and do that where I can't see it. So I told the pilot, I was like, we can go, but we're not shooting anything. And then the Pro Super came out and was, trying to intimidate me. And I'd been in enough trouble in my career that I wasn't scared. I was like, oh, it's that simple. Like, get on, do the inspection, and let's get this flight underway. But now that you've pencil whipped that in front of me, I don't believe any of your transcribing bullshit. So I don't know. I don't know what led to all that. There was even a night deployed where me and Coveney and a couple other guys went and purposely sat down with the maintenance leadership at the time, and they just got up and walked away. It was wild. I'm an airman. I'm just there to load the guns. I wasn't into the political realm of the whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
I just saw it, right? And remember BMAC came out that trip. And I was like, BMAC, we need a chief out here because it's gotten a bit crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember it got so crazy that, a lot of times those maintainers would come over to our side because we had nicer bathrooms right there in that AFAC trailer. And, it was part of the pre-flight crew's job to go put the girl in the bikinis pictures into the page holders by the urinal. Like, that was a thing. And that guy kept coming up and removing those pictures and putting in uniform regs and highlighting the parts about mustache wear and flight suit wear. It was the whole thing got real childish.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's that whole ops versus maintenance, issue, and you don't see that everywhere. But it was definitely very upfront,
palpable.
Yeah, the entire time I was in gunships, and saying that, I'm definitely not saying that maintenance, that there weren't great maintainers. There were some amazing maintainers that were smarter than some of a lot, definitely me. And a lot of our crew, but then there was guys who are just crew or maintainers that just didn't, they didn't want you to make any more work for them than they already had to do, and so
okay. I can kind of explain.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can kind of explain that. So
please.
So kind of here's what happens. So if you have a kid who was abused as a child or molested or something, 9 times out of 10 he grows up later in life and does the same shit, right? So that's, I always laugh because I use that analogy about it, but that's exactly what's happening. So we had guys who were maintainers who got yelled at by an aircrew guy, right? And then later on, when they became the expert at maintenance, they switched over to aircrew and they became an aircrew guy. And guess what they did the first time they talked to a maintenance guy? They shit on him just like he did, right? So I always noticed that, especially when I was teaching in San Antonio. I would try to tell the guys that when they were coming through the bag course there, I would tell them look, I'm glad you maintainers are coming over to be aircrew, but my history with you guys is you guys are some of the worst aircrew members ever because you'll always start shitting on maintenance, and then you create these fights with maintenance, right? And actually, the reality is we only own the aircraft when we're operating the aircraft. When we're on the ground, maintenance owns that aircraft. So then it turns into that pissing match of who owns the aircraft. When in reality, the message should be, how do we get this operation done? Because somebody's dying out there. Somebody's, pinned down, and we need to get there and, help them out. We shouldn't be having this pissing match between us. But that's what would happen and 9 times out of 10, it came from an aircrew guy that we had who was a prior maintenance guy who would just start talking shit to these maintenance guys. And a lot of it was justified, though, because some of these maintenance guys would try to blow smoke up your ass. And I would buy it because I'm just a dumb young gunner. So I'm like, yeah, maintenance said this. And then, somebody like Jimmy Christensen or something's like, bull fucking shit. I was a weapons troop. That is completely false. That is not how that works. That rig doesn't say that. It says this, and then they would
and I think it also depends on, who that flight is with your FE, because there's some FEs that this thing will be perfect. And there's some that were nah, we're not worrying about that. And you kind of, as a young airman, you inherit, the kind of the consensus of the FEs you're used to flying with. What is your acceptable level of risk and, what doesn't matter. Um, I'm not saying one way or the other's right. I think that everybody does their job, and that's just the way it should be. Um, but yeah, it always was really contentious. Just
Yeah.
always.
No, I agree. But pretty much like my first like 5 deployments, I would say, I hung out with maintenance more than I hung out with aircrew, and that was just because the aircrew guys are all way older than me. They're in their mid 30s. Talking about retirement, and I'm just a 20-year-old kid. And I remember that was that was the most like eye-opening experience. Is like seeing a guy who like was a legend, right, in like the gunship community, who like grilled your ass, every day, knew all this knowledge, right? And you go to his retirement and they read his retirement and they're like, and with, a combined, combat time, 327 hours, you're like, you only had 327 hours?
You're
What
like,
the
dude, I
fuck?
got that in my first trip and a half.
Yeah, like, why the fuck are you even grilling me on shit? And like, I say it because my experience in gunship is a little different than most guys. I got accepted to lead gun like super fast. And I think I was a senior airman when I got it. So like it was a huge fight. Nobody wanted me to become lead gun because I'm too young, right? But they're like, "Fuck, the guy's got a shitload of hours, and he's done everything." Like, and he no Q3s. I mean, he's good. So I remember my first deployment. I'm the lead gun on this deployment, but I was the bitch boy the whole deployment because it's a bunch of evaluators. Paul Vadden was one of them. They're grilling me every night on what I should do, what I did wrong, da da da. So then I come back from that deployment and they're like, "Yeah, I got nothing, man. Like, you're a lead gun. Cool. Actually, I'm sorry, that wasn't my first lead gun. I was just a gunner on that one." He said, I can't. I don't think you're ready to be a lead gun just because of your rank wise." He's like, "But knowledge wise, like I got nothing, man. You're there." So then my next deployment, another lead gun's like, "Fuck that, you're too young." He deployed with me. I got grilled that whole deployment too because he thought I was too young. So then I come back from that. Obviously, nothing happened. I did a couple more deployments and then get moved to instructor. And again, instructor's a weird thing because I think at the time I was like a young staff. And then get moved into evaluator right away. But that was always the funny thing is everybody was always like, "Yeah, he's got the most experience and everything else, but at the end of the day, he's still just like rank wise, it's not there." And I was never the career guy who was trying to push for rank. I could give two shits about rank. I wanted to be a senior airman the whole time. I thought that was the best rank ever.
Yeah.
Like no bullshit. And then like I would even tell guys because they're like, "Hey, why aren't you trying to promote?" I'm like, "Why am I gonna go like suck dick and do all this crazy shit you want me to do to promote to make an extra $400? Like if I want $400, I can go push baskets at Walmart and make $400. Like the rank thing I didn't understand that." But eventually, with time, I remember I had a commander pulled me aside on deployment and was like, "Hey, brother, like we'd have a real talk." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, dude?" He's like, "Here's the deal. Like, we're force shaping, we're kicking guys out." He's like, "You have an Article 15, you have a bunch of disciplinary stuff, and you're only like a staff sergeant." He's like, "You on my list, I have to honestly, do this, and honestly, you're the number one guy I'm going to kick out. Like, you're the dude. You're gone. So this may be your last deployment. Like, you may be gone when you get home." He's like, "But on the flip side, as a commander, I have a little bit of leeway, and I can pick who I would have as my number one guy to keep." He's like, "And if I honestly assess that, you're an evaluator. You have the most, like, you do the most evaluations. You have the most combat hours. All this stuff. You've done the most deployments. Everything else." He's like, "You're my number one guy to keep." He's like, "I don't know what they're gonna weigh on." He's like, "But I'm gonna turn it in like this, and hopefully they take my input. But this may be your last deployment, so I would advise you actually study and try to promote." So luckily, I went into test for rank on that deployment, and because we actually was allowed to test deployed, and I made it. And I think I just made it because at that time I had so much time in service, time in grade. I could have signed my name and made it.
When you had so many air medals as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I made it, and then
So
and then,
Ben, how many? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I'll just say I made it, and then I made tech, and I remember when I made tech, I was looking at the guys next to me, like God dang it, Christensen, Dummett, a couple other guys. But I'm looking at them and I'm like, "Dude, I've been a staff sergeant longer than you fuckers have been in the Air Force, and we're making tech sergeant together." So like, even when they gave me like when they told me that I made it, they're like, "We got good news and bad news." They're like, "Bad news is you're out of fucking uniform. Good news is you promoted." Like that's how fast I pinned on.
Damn, that's great. You had like Belden said, like a 9-line number.
Yeah.
So, how many deployments do you actually have, Ben?
Deployment. I think 23. I've never tracked it. That's what they said at my retirement. Somebody pulled it up and said it was 23 deployments. So that was the record. But honestly,
Is that yeah? I was gonna say, is that the record?
that was a record. But honestly, I would say, oh god dang it, Jared Huseman probably beats me because Jared Huseman did a bunch of doubles. Doubles count as one. I also had one deployment where I only deployed for like 42 days because I was deployed,
Right.
doing the mission, and they murk in like, "Hey, you guys need to land ASAP." Fucking Naro busted 330, and that's congressional waiver. Like I don't know how he has 330 hours in fucking 40 days,
Right.
but it's because I was deploying so much. I remember one time I think I was home like maybe 6 or 7 days and deployed back, and that was because
You're high fiving senior and the chief as you're getting off the rotator. They're like, don't even bother in processing.
well, what had happened is a hurricane happened and it blew the roof off a guy's house, and they were like,
damn.
"Yeah, we'll go to his house and we'll annotate all his stuff, and then we'll just lock it up so he can deal with it when he gets back." And I'm like, I don't want somebody going through my fucking house. Like, fuck that. So I was like, you know what? Like, why don't we send somebody out there? So they spent that whole day trying to find somebody, and nobody wanted to do it. So I was like, fuck, man, I'll do it. So they're like, all right, cool. I was like, well, here's my stipulation. Well, if I do this shit, you're flying me commercial there, you're flying me commercial back. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. No, I said, you're flying me there commercial, and I'm bringing a tail swap back. That's the way I'll do this.
Yeah.
So I literally, like, all my stuff was still packed to the house. I just went and got it and went right back. And the funny thing was, I got my same room back, everything. Like, nothing had changed. My email still worked, all that. They hadn't even shut it off yet.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Okay.
kind of on the deployment
yeah.
theme, you
Yeah.
know, Belden talked about the whole Christmas thing on the last episode, and I thought that was kind of funny because actually, I got there, and my first deployment was over Christmas, right? I left on November 28th, and I kind of got back, and I had that realization, like, I'm 21 years old, I don't have a family, and I remember I went to Mobility and talked to them, and I'm like, look, I will deploy every Christmas. Send me every Christmas. Like, let the guy with the family stay home. That's great, but you keep me home for spring break. That's my holiday. That's my Christmas. I'll go every Christmas, but you keep me home spring break. And I did. I want to say the 3 Christmases I was in the unit, every one of them was deployed.
Well, that was very kind of you. But you know what? That was something you saw in. I can't vouch for the white collar sweaties, but definitely the blue collar ones. You saw that, and it was always appreciative. Okay, so a couple questions, but realistically, this is probably going to ruffle some feathers. But in each of your own opinions, build your dream crew.
Oh, the whole thing?
Yep, the dream crew.
So I'll go first.
I'll
go first.
Yeah,
They can be living or not.
Can the pilots both be aircraft commanders?
Sure.
Okay.
So when I say I'll go first, I was saying because I honestly couldn't pick a dream crew because most of my crews were awesome. I only had one bad trip, and that was because everybody was just fucking angry. It was like Eric Summerlin. God dang, who's the black engineer? Super stocky, angry all the time.
Oh, CJ
McLean. CJ McLean. I think CJ McLean even like he deployed without doing like the altitude chamber or something like that. So like 2 weeks in, they figured it out and like they had to send him to Germany. So we missed like half our deployment and then came back and then but he's still angry. I'm like, what the fuck are you angry about? You were in fucking Germany for like 2 weeks chugging, awesome beer and eating good food. Like we're fucking sitting here waiting on you. Like what the fuck? Him and then like I think Eric's Chris Frazier and Rodriguez, Paul. They were just angry. That was my only worst deployment. Every other time, I mean, they're all cool guys. I hang out with them all the time, drink beers with them all the time. But on that deployment, I just remember all of them were fucking angry, and it ruined my whole, mindset. Because what I would do is, early on when I first started deploying, Obviously, I couldn't fit in with the crew because I was too young. So I would hang out with maintenance more, right? Then after that, I became like the evaluator type. And then so I kept getting, it starts fucking with your head, man. When you start looking at these missions and realizing, what are we doing? You're starting to question, is this even worth it? Like, we just took out the number one leader, and tomorrow there's another number one leader. And then we took his ass out. Now there's another number one leader. And like, what the fuck? Like, and then you're watching just marriages fall and, dudes commit suicide, all this crazy shit. So I quit looking at the missions. I quit listening to the radios. I would, turn them down, but I didn't want to hear those voices because I'd go to the gym. I knew those guys. Like, I'd go to Walnuts and drink beer and met those guys. I'd go out, on home station doing TDYs. We're doing exercises with some of these guys, and you knew their voices. So I was like, I don't want to hear that shit. I would just focus on doing schoolwork and doing the gym. And so that's all I would ever do. And so on the flight, I was on that deployment I was talking about. They just bitched the whole time. And then we go to the gym and they bitch the whole time. We go to the chow hall and they bitch the whole time. So I was like, dude, I just fucking need time to like figure something I can do where I don't got to hear any fucking bitching, and I can just fucking get in my little zen mode and like work out without bitching or do that. But it never happened that deployment. That was my only one that was bad. Every other one of them was fucking awesome. Shenanigans through the roof. I would say the best one that I had though was probably with me and Brad Jordan. We were on opposite crews, but we played pranks on each other that were like borderline illegal. And like everybody else was subject to our fucking pranks. Like, we'd steal each other's vehicle from life support. So crews were having to walk from life support all the way back to fucking ops, pissed off. Putting baby powder in the fucking, AC unit. So when they turn the car on, the fucking baby powder flies out. Except Brad Jordan put medicated one in there. So everybody's eyes are fucking burning. Like, dudes almost went to NIF. Obviously you go to the shower, take a shower. Either me or him would come in and steal your fucking all your clothes and your towel, so you had to walk back naked. That was one of my best deployments because it was just non-stop shenanigans the whole fucking time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope you have some shenanigan stories left for that segment.
Way to political that question up. I'm going to not answer the question, Ben.
No, go ahead. Go with yours.
No, I don't want to now. You danced it, so now I'm going to dance it because now I look like the asshole.
My bad.
Okay, well, then if you don't want to answer it, Brian, I'll ask another question.
No, that's fine. I'm with him. Most of my crews were, I went 5 times, which is minuscule compared to him. The only time I'd say we ever had a crew that was pretty, at least a gun deck that was a bit stressful, was me, Bish, Connell, and Chris Daly. And Daly was just high strung, stressed. It was still a good crew. Bish was a great guy. Connell was brand new, so he was like a kid in a candy store who kept just poking at Chris, and just Chris was getting frustrated. Connell wanted to do everything. He wouldn't do anything wrong. When do I get a NATO medal? When do we get to go to the gun range? When do we, And I sort of was in that middle ground. That was probably my 4th deployment, and I was sort of goading it on. And Chris finally like chewed my ass out, and I quit. But no, I mean, sort of when you ask the question, what's your dream crew? That's sort of like a personality question. Like, you want the most laid back crew, but also the crew that could function together and that had, an expertise level. So, my first, when I was thinking about like the flight deck, Megan Ripple and Greg Hahn would be a dream flight deck with Brian Billingsley as the, engineer, and, gun crew, how Ben was great. Me, Ben, Jared Huseman could be lead gun. He was probably my favorite lead gun I ever had. Belden, back in the load bubble, so there was so many good guys. It would be hard, it's who's going to make your life over there the easiest.
Right.
Because we all had a level of expertise that we could do our jobs.
100%. And that's kind of where I was going with it, is for the most part, it came down to personalities, but and what you preferred. Like for me, my first AC was his last trip, and that was Jeff Graham. And
Graham's Crackers.
Yeah, I'm telling you, dude, he spoiled me, because the next trip I had we were the bastard crew because Dipper, JD Waddell,
Yeah.
he left us, and we ended up going downrange without an AC and had to rotate through everybody else. And one of them, I'm not going to name drop him, but he was a flying Tonkin donkey, and it was just a danger all the way around to everybody on that plane always. And then the next one, I had Nasty, and other ones that were a little bit less memorable. But it just always was, how can you make it the easiest?
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
I liked Greg. I don't know how much he liked me because I was a young kid just doing dumb shit half the time. But deploying, I did 3 of my 5 trips with Greg Hahn, and he kept it. His leadership style I thought was brilliant. I've tried to, him and Megan, Captain Ripple at the time. I look back at a lot of the things I've brought into my own career, and most of them go back to those two. But I loved he had one rule: don't be late for the bus.
Yeah.
That's it.
Bus time's bus time, baby.
Yeah, and I remember on my first trip, on my first crew, Ben, with you, and Spleeze was the co-pilot. It was his first route as well, and he stepped on that bus, like foot was leaving the ground onto the bus when the clock on the bus ticked to 1 minute after, and I'll still never forget. Greg just pointed off the bus and took him out and ripped him up and down, and that was my first moment when I went, okay, so that's how this is going to go. And fast forward to our road, our tail swap home. We actually went 2 ship, and we were in Rhoda, and the nav went lost. We'll call it that night.
He's still
Rhoda,
active duty, so don't say his name.
That's why I didn't say a word. We got to St. John's, and needless to say, I think it was you, Ben. I could be wrong. Came knocking on my door. The whole crew was on the bus waiting for me, and I was just piss-ass drunk. Thanks to Ostagai the night before. And got on the bus, and I remember Greg looked at me and went, it's a good thing the nav was late in Spain. It was like the score is now tied 1-1, so I avoided an ass chewing.
So hold on now. We're going to skip over Spain? That was a freaking funny story.
No, please share.
You want to do Spain, that's your story. I want no part of it.
Dude, that was like, oh my God. I had pictures to prove it. Like, this is the thing. Like, I remember, like, it's one of those, like, obviously, we're hammered, dude. We haven't drank this whole deployment. Most of us were, like, just gym Nazis. So when I ran a crew, we would just go to the gym all the time. Like, that's what we did. We were in the gym, we're running. Everybody's getting healthy. Other guys were getting wasted the whole time. I never did any of that. I always just did gym. But when we got on the tail swap, that's a different story. Now we're balls to the wall. So we were been drinking the whole day, and we go out partying, clubbing. And so I remember these guys come back, and we bring these guys downtown too. Billingsley's there and everything else. And Billingsley's like, I'll never forget that image in my head of Billingsley. He's got like a glow stick in his mouth, 2 glow sticks. He's doing like fucking dancing with these glow sticks in this bar. And he's, Billingsley's a big dude, right? He stands out in overseas because there's not a lot of big dudes overseas. So he's dancing, he's going crazy. These Brian, Ostagai, a couple of the other guys, I can't remember who's all there, right? But
Destiny, we had a whole big night, and that's the night we left that tent top.
Yes, so we showed they showed up.
Destiny tried to fight the hot dog vendor on the street because he didn't have any bun.
So I remember, like, there's these girls, and they were running these locals, and like they're like, they're all over everybody and everything else, and I'm just like sitting back, like I'm wasted, but I'm still like coherent at what's going on. I'm like, these girls look like they're mentally retarded. Like, what the fuck? So I'm like taking pictures because I'm like, oh my God, these girls like clearly almost look mentally retarded, and I'm taking pictures. But they ended up getting us into this like rave club, and so we go to this like after hours rave club like down this alley, and fucking Dante gets it in his head that it's gonna be okay for him to smoke fucking hash with these locals, and he gets a big old thing of fucking hash, and he's outside getting ready to smoke it, and like me and Billingsley are like, yo, what the fuck is that? That's fucking hash. What the fuck? So we take it away from Ostagai, like, you're fucking idiot. Like, and Ostagai, to be fair, he means well, but he's Ostagai. He means well. It's just him, right? So we take it away from him. But so we end up trying to get back on base. Everybody's hammered. Dante tries to get in a cop car when we left the place we ate it on base. He tries to get in the cop car. We go back to the room. We pass out. We wake up and do an immediate crew brief because we're still discussing whether we're going to be able to go or not. There was a problem with the engine. So we're all standing out there listening to this meeting, and most of us are shirtless. We're on a balcony. We're just like in our pants, and like no shoes, no socks, and, just shirtless and just talking about what's going to happen. And I remember Billingsley's like stretching, yawning, and then he sticks his hands in his pocket, and then I could see like he's like, "Oh fuck, what's this in my pocket? What is this?" And it's the fucking hash. He fucking put it in his pocket, never threw it away. We came back on base. So then he's like, fuck. So then he's like, should I flush it? But then he's nervous if I flush it and it clogs the toilet. Like, what are we going to do? So he's debating on throwing it over the balcony. But fucking Austin guy, again, he's an idiot. He's going to go pick it up. So he had to leave and like dispose of it somewhere else away from Dante. But yeah, I was like, that was like an epic fucking story.
It was. And well, then again, we won't name names, but so we were in separate housing. To this Navy facility, and to the story we're referring to, the O's came over to pick us up to go to the plane, and they pulled up. It was like, has anybody seen the nav? We're like, wait, he's with you. Why would we know where he's at? So they drove us all out to the plane to start pre-flighting, and we don't know what happened. And all of a sudden, the crew bus pulls up, and all the O's get out, and the Dav's there, and he's wearing purple parachute pants and a pink like V-cut women's shirt, and all of us are just standing there looking, and he just walks the gauntlet and just looked at all of us and said, "Don't fucking say a word," and just like gets on the plane. And we ended up breaking anyway and spending 7 more days there, and it was one of probably the drunkest 7 days of my life, which is saying something.
Dang, dude.
Dude, I'll agree. And like the story with the nav, though, what happened is he got drunk and passed out on a park bench. A lady just saw him, and it's normal in other countries to do this. So she just gets him and talks him to get in her car. He goes home with her, and she basically lets him sleep on the couch. And then when he wakes up, she gave him, let him shower and gave him clothes to like get to the plane. So like we were like legit finished our pre-flight. We're like starting engines whenever he fucking shows up. Like that's how lady was.
Damn, dude.
Yeah, and I mean, I was no better. So in Greece,
the Royal Sun.
What was the base at Hania? I can remember the town, but not the base. But
the Royal Sun.
You're right. The Royal Sun was the hotel, and Creech. I was Creech. No, it wasn't Creech.
Was it Suda?
Yeah, Suda Bay.
There we go. And I would do. I mean, that was my first. Just got done my first deployment, doing a tail swap home. Hadn't drank in 3 months, and I was just drinking faster than if you weren't drinking your drink fast enough, I would take it. So I was passed out by like noon. But I remember I got separated and started going to different booze shops and just buying up liquor. And for some reason, I remember I was like, I took French in high school, and I just tried to speak French to the Greeks. Like that was cool. I don't know why. But I don't remember most of this, but apparently all the taxis on that island were like blue. They were like navy, darkish blue. And I just waved down a blue car, and the guy stopped. And I hopped in, gave him the little business card to the hotel, and he drove me there and went inside. Was like, I think I got one of your guys. And they came out, and I was like 1 foot still in the back seat, but just laid out on the concrete. Like I tried to get out and just didn't make it. 2 like fistful of bags of booze, like half of them broke, just like fell out of the car. But they told me later, like that wasn't a taxi. You just like flagged down some guy in a blue car, and he brought you home.
That's good stuff.
So I missed most of the shenanigans that happened later. Jesse Lee, remember that Ripple choked out Jesse Lee that day too.
Yeah. So that was shitty for Jesse Lee because he had got beat up by Kid first. Kid beat him up right before we deployed.
Drive by.
Yeah, and then right after that, he started the fight with God dang, the big old nav, John. God dang, John. I can't think of his name right now. big
I know.
dude,
I know.
he
Yeah,
rugby
I know.
player and all that. He started a fight with
Right, I
him.
think
Oh, Hart.
Hart,
Hart.
yeah,
Hart.
John Hart.
Yeah, his best friends with Dipper.
Yeah, and then they were like fixing the. They were John Hart wasn't gonna fight him, but John Hart was just kind of like hagging him on. He was poking the bears, what he was doing. And Megan Ripple's the one that took down Jesse Lee, put him in a chokehold and all that to like separate them from fighting. But I was like, Jesus. So that's happening at the bar, and then we all decide to go downtown and just get hammered. And so of course the number one thing they say is there's a red light district, don't go there. So of course we're like, we're going to the red light district. So we end up in the red light district, and I remember like, because we're hammered when we get there, because we went to all these other bars first. We started drinking like 9 a.m. This is like 11 o'clock at night. We're in the red light district, and I remember we're standing there outside of the house, and there's a line. I'm like, what the fuck? There's a line? Like I'm used to going into one where like you sit down, they got a drinking area and everything else. Well, so far I'm like, fuck this. So I walk around every day, I go in there. I start talking to the matador, the lady there, and I'm like, hey, like, what's up with the line? Like, what's the deal? She's, oh, like the other girls had to call in sick. I only have one. So I'm like, oh, so like all these guys are here for one? So I go tell everybody. And like, of course, one of the guys is like, yeah, I don't care. I'm still going. I'm like, yo, dude, you see these 6 guys in front of you? Like, there's somebody up there and there's 6 guys here. Like, you sure you want to go?
Back the story up. I wasn't there this night. This is just the story I got told from you guys. You went to the wrong house first.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. So there was a lady or the house that had a fucking red light. So we like Dante like kicks the door in. We fucking walk in. There's a lady sipping tea, like in her house watching fucking novellas or whatever. And Dante's trying to explain to her he's looking for a whore. And we're like, dude, this is like when I realized, like, dude, we're in some lady's house, bro. This is not the red light district. She just happened to have a red light in her house. Like, so we leave. We make it to the other place. We're hammered, and of course, all the other guys in the line don't like us because we're Americans, and I sense that. Like, this is not good. I could feel the tension. There's a handful of us, and Dante gets in, does his thing, whatever, and then. There's a lot more to that story, but I won't get into all that stuff. Like, so the next thing you know, they kick Dante out. He gets kicked out. The guys there start trying to fight us. We're pushing and shoving. No fists are thrown. I'm grabbing everybody like, dude, let's go. Eric Summers with us too. Fucking Hancock's with us. We leave, and we're like talking shit to the dudes at the line, right? And we're standing like our backs against the wall, like talking shit to those dudes. And all of a sudden, like one of the doors where we're talking shit at opens up, like a big steel door, and they grab Hancock and fucking pull him in this door and shut it. And so we're banging on this door like, what the fuck? Like, are they going to kill him? Like, holy shit. And it's like, 2-story houses, all brick. There's no way they've got bars over all the windows. It's all steel doors. There's no way getting inside this compound. And they got Hancock in there. So we're like, oh, we're panicking, dude. We're kicking the door as hard as we can. We're pushing it. It's not budging. And we're screaming. Next thing you know, the door opens up. They throw Hancock out. He hits the street, rolls, stands up, looks at us, and goes, dude, we need to get the fuck out of here right now. We're like, roger that. Got it. We start marching out of this street. And again, it's just this like brick houses and like 2-story. And you're just in this alley, right? That we're walking. They start like the 2-story houses, the top floors start opening up all the windows. They start throwing full like beer bottles at us. And they're crashing all over us in the street. We're running, holding our hands over our head, like trying to get hit with these beer bottles. We ended up making it out of there. The locals start chasing us, and we run. We get down to the to like the water, and the waves are crashing on the rocks. We're climbing over the rocks, trying to hide between like the rocks and the water. We're getting soaking wet from all the sea splash. I think we're gonna die. And we're we're climbing through all this, and the next thing you know, I remember we came out, and it was like God sent us a sign, like, "Ha!" We come out, and it's just the bar scene. We're right at the bars, so we go into the bars. We start getting smashed, and I had been pretty tame that whole night, so I was kind of like holding back. They eventually last hate. They call like because they have a curfew there, so they call that and say all the Americans got to go, and everybody starts getting taxis. Well, I'm getting everybody in taxis, and then I'm like, fuck this, I don't gotta leave. Like, I'll just fucking hang here. Like, fuck it. So I let everybody leave. I stayed drinking the whole night with a bunch of locals. And next thing you know, Shore Patrol comes through looking, and right away, like, I stand out like a sore thumb. They fucking make eye contact with me. They come up, they're questioning me. I end up bolting out the back of a bar and try to run away. And there's no taxis now. So I'm trying to get a taxi, but taxis don't exist at that time or at that time of night, because they're used to just dealing with the military, and that's it. Like, that's the only ones who use taxis. So I'm like, fuck it. And the Royal Sun kind of sits way up. So I remember looking at it, and like, I was blacking in and out, but I remember like kind of having some visual of me like hanging over the fence, like trying to get into the compound of the Royal Sun, and security guards, like me, like eluding them and like getting away. And then I get to my room and like pass out. And I wake up in the morning and I'm like, fuck, maybe it was a dream. Maybe it didn't happen, right? But I'm looking and I could see like the hole in my pants, the hole in my shirt because it was barbed wire and stuff. So I'm like, oh, fuck, like, I guess it did fucking happen. But I was like, cool, nobody knows. Like, I got away and I'm here in my room. So I go down, I'm eating chow, and I'm like, nobody said a thing. Like, it's cool. And then Brian Billingsley comes down and he's like, brother, like, you're not fooling anybody. He's like, we all watched you hanging off that fucking fence. We had to go help you get off the fence and everything else. And then you like bolted in like you're evading us, like got away. But the whole time I'm just hammered. Like they're watching me. But yeah, that trip was a wild trip, man.
Well, you remember when we got to St. John's, and I don't remember Summerlin on that trip. I know we had a 2-ship with us and maintainers, because that was they'd forward deployed a group to Africa, so they tail swapped 2 birds over to backfill. Yep. So once the Africa thing was over, they just said, "You guys are done. Hop on your planes and go home." So we had 2 full crews plus maintainers, which is a very rare event. But I remember we got to St. John's. First of all, it's similar to Brian's story. You remember, Ben, like at one point, apparently the METAR out of fucking the Azores was...
We didn't have the winds. We couldn't meet the winds.
The winds were wrong. So we're up at altitude trying to make it from...
Dude, they literally said we're crashing like 200 miles off the coast.
Well, I think at one point it was I only remember it as we were 15 minutes short at one point of making landfall. So I was like, dude, motherfucker, you better call the Coast Guard. If I'm parachuting out of this bitch, I want to land in a dinghy.
Yeah. So I remember that.
Like power off glide distance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian Billingsley. Yeah. Billingsley did his thing, and once we got closer to the coast, the winds died down and we made it. But we were in.
Dude, so I remember that story because basically I was asleep in the CRC, and then I got up to go back take a piss, and I walked by the BMC, and I see the nav and the FOCO and everybody like fucking scribbling, and I could see they're panicking. There was nothing getting said on the comms. So I'm like, what the fuck? So I go up and start talking to them, and that's when they're like, dude, I don't think we have the winds. We're not gonna make it with the winds. Like, it's not gonna fucking happen. So I think initially the first time was like 100 miles or 200 miles off. It was further than Coast Guard could get us. And then it got to like, I think we climbed or we descended. I know we did both eventually, but winds got better, then they got worse and better than worse. Winds were changing. And then it got to like, we're going to crash like on the coast, but we still got to do a mayday call. But everybody wanted to wait. For whatever reason, they wanted to wait because we wanted to put the name out there. And then it got to like, hey, we're going to make it. We're going to land on the actual airfield, but we're going to be under the minimum fuel. Like, we have to report. And then it got to like, we had excess fuel. we caught a tailwind or something. But no, I
remember that story now. But we were in St. John's, and we had been out. Remember, we went out that night, and Dante was.
That was another story of politics.
Yes, so we were. This is the Bush era, and me and Ben were out. Dante was out, and we were trying to go meet girls in St. John's as you're supposed to do, and this one girl found out we were American and said something about like fuck Bush, fuck that, and we knew Dante was very pro Bush at the and so I sort of instigated it and walked up and was like, Dante, this girl says fuck Bush. What do you think about that? And I swear to God, he grabbed a chair, turned it around, sat in it backwards, and like they got face to face and just started screaming at each other so bad that the band, there was a live band, like acoustic band playing, stopped. It stopped playing music to make sure everything was okay. And like we were hungover from Spain, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna have some beers, but I'm not doing shot. I can't. I'm toasted. And Dante walks up. This was the night I was late for the plane the next day. And Dante walks up with 2 shots of tequila, and he's like, "Here you go, man." I was like, "Dude, I'm not. I said I'm not doing shots." And I'll never forget, and he looked at me like a disappointed 5-year-old, like who was just sad. I was like, fuck it, fine. And then drank so much that I was late for the plane the next day.
So that's I love it. Like the name of this episode suggests, it truly is always funner with a gunner, especially when you have two. So I want to ask this question. Y'all can tag team it however you want to do. Tell everyone about the Bad News Bears.
Well, I'll have to take that one. So
It's a good one. It's a good one.
So I'm Papa Bear, and by that I only mean I had time and grade, whatever. So I was the class leader of a bunch of non-priors. That just meant I got yelled at twice. So when we were going to the schoolhouse at the 19th, we were trying to think of the right way to describe this. I think I've described it as troublesome young airmen. We were motivated. We were ready to have fun. Just got to the, military coast of Florida. We were just ready to party. And the differentiating factor was once we stepped on the plane, it was all business, and we were really good at what we were there to do. It's the only reason we survived training. As they talked about, there was on the last podcast at the time, we were so short-manned that it was sort of like they were willing to put up with a lot of shit and shenanigans at the time, and we took advantage of it, not by on purpose, but my class was known for shenanigans, known for hilarious stories. I went back and visited the unit in college years later, and I remember Ben Felix came up to me and hugged me. It's like, we miss you guys. Like, your shenanigans were fun. The shenanigans now are just like get lawyers involved. It's like back in your day, like we would all have our blues ready for Monday morning. And whenever we were in the first shirt's office or the commander's office with you, like we're supposed to stand next to you, but we purposely stood like one pace back because we would just be trying our damnedest not to laugh the whole time. So some of the things that we had gotten into in training, probably one of the funniest stories we did, they were turning the power off in the dorms on like a Sunday to do maintenance, whatever they were doing. And I remember looking down. So in the common area between the new dorms, the quads, and the old dorms was this pavilion. This pavilion, it had these 3 fire pits and 2 grills. And these fire pits, my God, you could cook a small cow on these. So I remember looking down and I see Caleb Mello dragging a dead tree, like out of the woods. And he doesn't put it inside the fire pit. He puts it on top of the metal grate and it lights this thing up. So I was like, I'm going to go down and see what's going on. So we go down and Danny Blythe came out. Like we were just all, I think Beers came out and he was just lighting the tree on fire because he wanted to cook a can of SpaghettiOs because he didn't have any power and he was hungry. This somehow turned into a party that cleared out our dorms, the dorms across the way with mostly maintainers. This turned into a party with probably 200-300 people. All 3 fire pits lit up to where the flames were probably to the top of the pavilion. Both 2 or 3 grills in there were lit on fire. Everybody's out there drinking. Eventually, someone pulled a truck out there and like had their system going. Like we had a fucking throwdown, which is already like you're on a base that's going to attract attention. But at the time, unbeknownst to us, and I forget what it's called, like a unit, was it URI, unit readiness inspection and unit readiness exercise, all that shit we used to do about deploying. That was going on. And there was, I guess, Tent City was pretty close to where the quad dorms was. And the wing commander at the time, I forget his name, was the white-haired devil, they called him, was there and saw the flames, called the fire department, sent the fire department over, and they came over and somehow walked up to me and Mello, which was ironically how the whole thing got started, but told us, hey, you got to put this out. Like, you're going to light the roofs on fire. And I'll never forget, stone cold, just like Mello is, just looked at it and went, the roofs are made of metal. And there was just this awkward pause. And they're like, put it out. But I mean, again, the wing, so we go into the 19th the next day. And of course, all the instructors walk in and then sit down. And it's like, so, we heard you guys tried to light the dorms on fire. And I was like, why do you think that was us? What are you talking about? There was a party. We saw it. Of course, it was us. But, I mean, we had that. We had a car wreck. I crashed a motorcycle.
Dude,
There was
you
just
had fucking
always...
Mello's car that they tried to impound because they thought it was a fucking abandoned car. It's a car that he
So
drives.
we
He
had
had to drive the
Mello...
gas by pulling a fucking wire.
Yes, so I could send pictures. So Mello, he bought his car. It's a 1979 Chevy Caprice Classic. The color of this car was rust. And I have the pictures. In a not a storm, but in a rain event, we pulled out a Sawzall and decided we want to turn it into a convertible. So we attempted on the side of the dorms to cut the roof off. That didn't work. We cut a hole in the hood to make our own custom air intake, and we got a piece of corner like air conditioning duct from Lowe's, and we put that on the hood and nailed it in with nails and then duct tape. And then the throttle body kept slipping off. So he ended up he hooked a piece of rope and rounded into a little handle, and you had to pull the rope to make the car go. And then we took out the shocks, so it was just springs in the back. So you could actually bounce yourself up and down in the back of this car and make the bumper scrape the road. And it wasn't that they tried to impound it for being abandoned. It was that Hurlburt took pride in how many times they had won the Best Base of the Year award. And so they were doing their inspections, searching the base and all this stuff. And yeah, they're like, that car's got to go. So we ended up hooking it up because we hadn't driven it in a while. It was probably abandoned at that point. So we hooked it up into a tow rope to a Jeep, and we pulled it off base and left it on the side of the road in the woods. And months later, he bought a new car, and we were out working on it, and security forces pulled up because it was I think it was like Paget's old car, that black hot rod he used to have. And security forces came to talk to us, and they're like, asked us questions, and like, were you the ones with that car? And we're like, yeah, that was us. They're like, we were about to pull you over while you were pulling that off base, and called back to dispatch or whatever, and whatever they call it, their boss came back and was like, no, let them go. They are just doing what they were instructed to do. Get that piece of shit off base so we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But the Bears were... I don't know how real this was because I was never in those meetings, but I mean, the rumor and what we were told was like it spread around base about the shenanigans that we did. And we were apparently a topic of discussion in the base-wide First Shirts meetings and the top 3 meetings that were had. The Bears were asked about.
So I can attest for some of this stuff. I was in the 4th and I heard about it. And then they ended up making Chris Frazier. He was the guy who was trying to go PJ, failed out, or medical, something happened, right? Came to Gunships. They put him in charge of these guys and would make him, like, instead of them doing like normal study days, he was in charge. So he would lead their like PT programs. He was instructed just to grill them so hard that they couldn't have the energy to go out and party and do stuff.
Yeah, so he was introduced to us in the 19th, and what was told to us was, this is Technical Sergeant Frazier. When we have Squadron PT, from the time Squadron PT is over until lunch, you belong to him. And that's what it was. They were trying to literally just beat the energy out of us. And it turned into what was called the Gunner Fun Run. And I know Sergeant Knight, like, carried this on as an instructor for a while, a lighter version of it. But we started this run where we would leave the 19th and we would, run the road all the way around
The golf course.
the runway. We'll just up the runway around to the front gate. And then the bridge that went over to the sound side into base housing, we would run that. And the rule was, because it had the ramp, like 2 or 3 left and, turnarounds up to the top of the bridge. But you had, on the first time across the bridge, you had 1 minute. And every second you took over 1 minute was a push-up. So then we'd run from there up to the actual beach, the Soundside Pavilion that was up there. And we would take a break from running, and we would do push-ups with our feet up on the railing. And then we would do like one-legged lunges with our feet up on the benches. So then from there, I don't even remember the route, but we would run all through base housing, and we would like hit the different playgrounds in base housing, and we would have to bear crawl through the sand. And then we would eventually wind our way back around to the bridge, back over the bridge. We had 2 minutes this time. And then we headed over they had that big pavilion over by the pool that was like a roller hockey rink.
Yep.
And we would do 4 laps around the roller hockey rink. And every time you hit the corner of the hockey boards, you had to jump the boards. And then we would stop outside of that and do calisthenics for probably 10, 15 minutes. And then have to like crawl over the top of the monkey bars. And then we would start our run back from there, all the way back around the runway, all the way back to the 19th. So we were doing that a couple times a week, or we would go to the gym and he would just beat the tar out of us. And again, it was literally just to make us so tired that we might get into less trouble. And then eventually we got along with Chris, and Chris, at least me and, Summerlin had just got back from his first deployment. So we ended up out in, Pensacola partying, and I had a ground trainer the next day, but they didn't tell me about it. So like it kind of backfired in some sense. Chris is a great guy, just a freak specimen of nature. The Bears were definitely, but once we stepped on the plane, it was all business, and we were good at what we did.
Right.
I mean, there was an event where Caleb had a flight. He called us that morning. He's like, I don't know where I'm at. I think I'm on a train.
I remember that, dude.
And I was like, what do you mean you're on a train? He's like, I don't know. I'm in a train car. So in our mind, he's in Virginia by now. Turns out it was like, what, AJ's or whatever. They had like a little caboose out in
Yep.
their front area. He had
Dude,
just...
you know what the crazy part is? That wasn't the first time, dude. The other time, he actually passed out in somebody's car and woke up like halfway to Georgia in the back of some girl's car and was screaming at him.
No, we were in Tallahassee.
Yes.
I
yes.
had friends from Arkansas in Tallahassee going to college at Florida State. And yes, he woke up in the back of somebody's car driving to work and just sat up, and this poor girl started screaming and kicked him out. And he like hid at a Subway restaurant until they could come get him.
Yeah. So what's funny, you just brought up Chris Frazier. You brought up Chris Frazier. I got a story about that. So I think you were on it too. It was like me, Brian Belden, Eric Summerlin, maybe you, but we were all doing wheelies on Pensacola Bridge. And a cop came up behind us and tried to pull us over. We tried to run. So he's swerving in front of us, and I end up, downshifting and then shoot around him. And I'm ducking under the that bridge they have there. What's it called? The real low one where the train goes over right after the Pensacola Bridge. I was gonna duck under that, and I'm in that turn, and I'm looking in my mirrors. I'm in the turn, and I see Belden had stopped, Summerlin had stopped, and somebody else. So I'm like, I gotta turn around. Like, we're gonna get in trouble. So I turn around and I come back to where they're at, and I park. And the cops grilling us. And so we're telling them, like, dude, we're about to deploy. This is our last night here. We're deploying tomorrow. We can't do this. Like, yeah, we're idiots, but whatever. And I guess I missed the part where he said, hey, I'm going to let you guys go. Like, have a good day. It's free. I thought he said he's taking us to jail. So then I'm sitting there like arguing, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. Who do you have on camera like doing a wheelie? Like you don't have anybody on camera. You're fucking full of shit. Like show us the speedo. Who you got? There's 15 of us. Which one of us was doing it? Who you giving the ticket to? And he looks at like Belden and all them guys, and he's like, "Is your friend fucking retarded? I just said I'm letting you guys go, but the more he keeps talking, I think I'm gonna take you guys to jail." And I was like, "Oh, you're letting us go? Cool." So like, so they let us go, but the reason they let us go is because we called Chris Frazier, and we said he's our supervisor, and Chris gets on the phone and basically tells the cop like, "I'm ripping these guys a new one, da da da, they're fucking done," and then. So the cop's like, "You're gonna have to deal with your supervisor, man. Chris is pissed." We're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." So then Chris calls us back. "Hey, where you guys going?" We're like, "We're going to Arity's Angels, man. Meet us there." So then we go to Arity's Angels, get all wasted. We're riding back, and as we leave the bar, I tell everybody like, "Dude, we're wasted. We just got pulled over on the Pensacola Bridge. Like they already know we're here. Like everybody, chill, be cool." Eric Summerlin pops a wheelie right in the parking lot. And shoots off. So then everybody shoots off. So we're doing like, I think at one point I remember I was trying to do speed limit. They were leaving me. Capelad's with us, Jace Capelad. I was like, whatever, I'm catching up. So I remember I'm speeding up. I'm looking at my speedo. I'm sitting around, I don't know, 120, 130, coming into that turn on Pensacola Bridge. There's a bike in front of me. It ends up being Belden. And he fucking lays it down, dude. And he's bouncing off the rails, like one median to the other median. And I'm in my head, I'm like, holy shit, like he just crashed and I'm gaining on him like super fast. So I'm going way faster than he was. Like maybe I should lock these brakes up. So I lock it up and I remember like I'm almost gonna run him over and I'm looking at his face. His jacket is now pulled up around his helmet. And he's looking at me and I'm trying to like avoid hitting him. So I had to let off the brakes and like swerve around him. Then I park, get up, and he jumps up full of adrenaline, ready to go, and he's like, "Dude, let's get out of here, let's leave." The bike he was on was my motorcycle. It was another motorcycle that I owned. So then I'm like, "All right, we're gonna leave the fucking motorcycle. Fuck it, let's go." So jump on the back. He tries to jump on the back of my bike, but that's when the pain kicks in, dude. Like it all the tattoos he has, dude, they're gone, dude. Like his stomach, his nipples, like I mean, he's like standing in his underwear, dude. Ripped his pants off and everything. And then from the pain, he starts wanting to throw up and stuff. And he's also like concussed from bouncing off the guardrails. So he's sitting there like, "How many drinks do we have?" And I'm like, "Dude, shut the fuck up about the drinks." Like sheriff showing up, and I remember I'm trying to tell the sheriff when he shows up, I'm like, "Yeah, man, I was just cruising home, and this guy crashed. I just rolled up," and he's like, "Okay, how fast was he going?" I was like, "I don't know. It's probably like 45 miles an hour." He's like, "Okay, you think he's doing 45?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think he's about 45. He goes, "Okay, well, come here, take a look at something." So he takes his mag light and he starts shining at the fucking grind marks where he slid, and it like goes all the way out of view, like around the curve and out of view. And he goes, "You think those grind, like the marks like that happen, somebody going 45 miles an hour, sir?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not an expert on this. I just think he was maybe doing 45. And he goes, "Do you know this guy?" I was like, "No, I have no idea who he is." He's like, "All right, I think you should probably leave now then." I was like, "Okay, see you later." So I ended up dipping out and beat up with Eric Summerlin and Kaplan at the house later. But yeah, he destroyed that bike, dude.
Welcome to our group therapy class. Tales from the gun deck, scuffs on boots and bad decisions. Tales from the gun deck, where the checklist meets poor life choices.
That's great. Okay, so we've got about 30 minutes left. Let's roll to a Tales from the Gun Deck from each of you.
All right, let me tell one more about Ben that I've wanted to tell, and then that's the last story I've got pre-planned.
Yeah.
So Billy Bowlegs Festival, one of the great events that happens in Fort Walton Beach. For those that don't know, it's literally take Bourbon Street and put it on the water. Instead of buildings on both sides, it's boats.
So just to put it, they don't do that anymore, bro. 2020 killed it, but that used to be awesome.
It was amazing. And instead of a street, it's a sandbar. I learned quickly the problem with that, though, is once you get and it's supposed to be a family event, right? There's supposed to be cops there to make sure shenanigans don't happen. They always happen. Um, so Ben and I were. I don't know if you remember the story, Ben,
Oh,
but
I do. I do.
one of the problems is all the pontoon boats start to look the same
Yep.
when once you're loaded. And Ben and I were walking and up and down, and I don't know why, but eventually we thought we had made it back to our boat. Hopped on the pontoon boat, getting in the cooler, getting some beers, and I remember this lady just starts yelling at us. Just,
So
what are you doing?
so we
Get
didn't
off
think
our
we
boat.
made it back. We knew we were on the wrong boat. We were drowning,
Oh,
bro. We were dying.
oh,
That's what we got on
maybe.
that boat.
I don't remember. I just remember because again, I was that drunk. I remember getting on this boat, getting into the cooler to get some beers, and this lady just starts screaming at us. Get the hell off her boat. This and Ben. I remember you looked at her dead as a freaking doornail and just went, "This is our boat," and and she looked at us straight faced and went, "You're scaring my daughter." And we both turned around and looked, and like in between, like behind the steering console, this pontoon boat, like between like that the seat and the couch behind it is this probably 5-year-old, 6-year-old girl, in a little pink button up or a little pink life jacket, and I felt terrible. Ben just turns and looks at her, and again, still straight face, just goes, "She invited us up," and we just took the beers, jumped off, and ran. And just that moment of how straight laced Ben stayed. This is our boat. You're scaring my daughter. She invited us up. Like how cool you played that off. I think I ended up getting left actually at Bull
Dude,
Legs that
we
year.
did leave you, and you had to swim back
I swam back,
with a girl.
and
You
then
swam back with some girl. You carried some girl
there was
up.
a girl I was dating at the time. We swam back and ended up catching a ride home in the sketchiest like rapist van I've ever seen. There was like stolen car audio equipment in the back. Um, but yeah, just that moment of this is our boat, and that's why,
Yeah.
at least to me, I don't remember it not being our boat because of that statement. But I got left on Crab Island once too with Greenfield
Yeah.
with his camera.
Dude,
All right,
I remember that
back
story.
to you, Paul.
I remember that story for the fact that when we started that day, we were on somebody else's boat on the way out, and this dude souped up this fucking pontoon boat. And so, I mean, we're like screaming across the water, and I think somebody's hat flew off or something. So he
Well, I
rolls
was in
with.
a different boat. I was with Cause because
Okay,
we
you
thought
were.
it was a great idea that year to fill super soakers with vodka
Yeah.
to like shoot at people's mouths, and that was great except for it's really hard to aim, so we ended up hitting some girls in the eye, and vodka in the eye from a super soaker does not feel good.
Exactly. So, but our thing was, we were out there. It was early, and I remember this guy fucking rolls the throttles back to neutral, and the pontoons are not made to go fast. So as soon as he does that, this nose just dips down and goes literally underwater. So all of our coolers on the front of the boat float up. Everything goes out in the middle of the ocean. I thought the boat was going to break in half, and eventually, the pontoon pops up, and we all have to jump overboard to save our coolers and everything else. And then we get there and just start the shenanigans. Um, Dude, I've been to Billy Bowlegs so many times. I used to, when you said about coming home for spring break, that's what I would do. I would say, I'll deploy as
Yeah.
much as you want, but I'm home for Billy Bowlegs
Every
every single
Christmas,
time.
but I'm all for that. So, all right, Pelt. I didn't mean to step on that. I just wanted to get that out. So,
No, not at all. I'm glad you told it. Okay, so we'll roll into the final two segments. Tales from the gun deck. Where you tell a story about a crew member, doesn't have to be a gunner, that made decisions that ultimately resulted in poor life choices.
so I'll tell mine, and then, so I had two. One of them was funny. One of them could have been serious, but luckily it wasn't. The funny one, I forget who the engineer was, but it was his last trip. This was his, and my gun deck was me, Fraser, Summerlin, and Hughesman with Gant as our loadmaster, and I, to go off Danny's stories of us always being naked. Yeah, I ran up. It was this guy's last approach in combat, and um, butt ass naked with just a pistol belt and my flak vest on, and sat on the engine's lap for the approach. And of course, when I go do something like that, his comm panel starts smoking profusely. So now, again, he's got a naked gunner on his lap and smoke's just billowing out of that. So that was a fun story. And then I go back and Summerlin and Gant and them had stolen all my clothes. I should have saw that coming, but I didn't. But the one where I fucked up was on our crew with Ben. And again, baby gunner, brand new. And I was supposed to prep for pressurization. And I fucked up and I didn't close the exhaust port on the 25 mil. And so Billingsley calls back and he's like, hey, I'm not getting pressure. Not that we got a lot of pressure anyway, but I'm not getting any sort of real pressure at all. Like, is everything buttoned up like it's supposed to be? And Spurlock set me up there to check the 25, and I realized I hadn't closed the port, and instead of saying it, I just tried to fix my mistake and just pulled the pin, closed the port, and everyone's ears just popped almost instantly. And that could have been much worse than it was. The response was, you should have just dimed yourself out so we weren't trying to put pressure on the plane while you did that, because that could have popped everyone's eardrums. But looking back, that was one of my bigger oopsie moment decisions on the gun deck, trying to cover up my new guy mistake.
That's good. Ben, what about you?
So I'm trying to think back. I have so many, but some I can't tell because you see.
Yeah, that's the one I will.
Yeah, I still haven't been able to figure out what the statute of limitations is on shenanigans.
I mean,
we've gotten zero feedback about that.
It's the UCMJ. It kind of does whatever it wants. So I can't really tell all of them, but I'm trying to think of something funny here. Drawing a blank right now. So yeah, I guess I'll just trying to. So I remember one. So what was the question again? Give me the question again.
Yeah, so this is Tales from the Gun Deck segment, where it's about any crew member. Doesn't have to be a gunner, doesn't even have to be on a plane, but it's a crew member that made poor life choices.
Oof,
all right,
man.
I'll give you another minute to think. This was a story I kind of wanted to tell, and I'll fit it in here. So my initial check ride was a thing of oddity. My initial check ride, I had I don't remember his name. He was a Master Sergeant from the 16th, but he was the functional manager of the entire 1 Alpha 7 career field. I had the functional manager for the entire 1 Alpha career field, which I remember his name was Chief Stefan. So the chief in charge of all air crew. Both of them were on my check ride. Mike Willman was my evaluator, and I had 2 E9 ODA guys that were on as incentive rides, and I'm doing the runaround. Again, this is poor life decisions. Doing my EPs, how we did in training, compound EPs of everything possible that is going wrong can go wrong, and it was on fire, and we were ditching. It was the end of a world scenario, so I had to put the anti-exposure poopy suit on, which part of the process, you're putting the suit on that it's keeping you from freezing to death in the water as fast. So it's all sealed around your extremities. So you have to burp it. You get the air out as you zip it up. I didn't do that. So I had this thing on, and also we're on fire. So I'm running up to get the oxygen bottle, the fire mask, in front of the CRC, and the 2 E9 Army guys are there. And and if you remember right, that bottle is on the ground, right? It's low. So I have this poopy suit on, and I squat down to get this fire mask, but I didn't burp the suit. So all the air comes up, and it just pushes my arms out to the side like I'm the Michelin Man. And I sort of just look like this fat puff of air right in front of these 2 E9 ODA bubbas who are just dying laughing. because it looked like you could just roll me back to the gun deck because I was just inflated full of air. So that was a fun check ride.
Yeah, you put the special and special ops in that one. Huh?
I have a tab, the
Don't steal it,
Army-
man. That's mine. I own that.
I have the Army tab, and I got this as a contractor from the shop, but they just had it like the word special, and they left the rest of it blank so you could fill it in. And me and Cosmo, as contractors, just bought the tab that just said special and wore it on our jacket. So yes, definitely put the special and everything right there.
That's great. That is good stuff.
All right, Ben,
Ben?
I bought you time.
Yeah, so I guess mine would be again, just to put it in the to get you in the frame of reference of where I was at mentally. Again, like I said, when I first came in, it was all tech sergeants, and we didn't know anything because we're young, right? And eventually, we became the guys in charge. So in my stupor, I thought I can do this training and not be an asshole to everybody. I can be friends with everybody, and I can make everybody's experience in the gunship community like nice. So I turned into like a Santa Claus. So I would fly with guys who had no business on a gunship, and then like explain what they did wrong, but like here's how you fix it, and like proceed on. You get a Q1, you're good to go. As long as I would make the lead gun fly with me that night, and I'm like, hey, lead gun, this is the guy you're taking on deployment next week. So if you're cool with it, brother, I'll give him a Q1. If you don't, I'll Q3 his ass right now. Like, you tell me, here's the 10 things I got him on. You tell me what you want to do. And usually lead gun's like, no, he's my buddy. Like, let's give him the Q1. I'll work with him. I'll go through all that stuff with him. I'll work with him. I'm like, that's fine with me. Take him, right? The other thing was, mentally, I was a little fucked up for my first deployment where that 25 ran away, and I didn't immediately like fix it, right? And like, even though I heard Kenny Serbin like saying safe the ashes, I didn't immediately safe it because I was so like, I'm not a lead gun. I can't just flip switches without that. And like, I was back there on myself. So it took me longer than it should have, but to actually safe that gun. So mentally, I was a little messed up from that. So once I became a lead gun, I started trying to and became an instructor and evaluator. I started trying to change the model where I would literally, on the first deployment, I would turn my back to a brand new guy and be like, he'd get in my function, I'd turn my back and be like, figure it out, dude, you got it. And would let him learn. So I started getting a lot of positive feedback. Like, dudes actually learned how to do their job a lot faster. They became more confident. Dudes are doing more stuff. And I got a lot of good stuff out of it, right? And I thought I was doing the right thing. Well, then fast forward later, we started having a lot of lead guns that would never sit the window. They're like, I'm the lead gun. I can't sit the window. I got to be on the gun deck. I'm like, fuck that. These guys are checked out. You're just being a bitch. Like, sit the window. Let them learn. So I'm on with the crew, and it came my time to sit the window. So I'm like, hey, guys, like, you've had 3 flights with me. You've done good. Like, it's my time to sit the window. I know most lead guns don't do this. I'm sitting the window, and you guys are going to have to figure it out in the back. I stacked the crew kind of the way I wanted it, putting the stronger guy in the middle so he could help out. And we took off, man. Day mission, alert. It's one of those ones where you've been out for like 3 days, and then you told crew rest, and then come out of crew rest, do a brief, go back to crew rest. Like, apparently most people think like sleeping is like a light switch. You just flip it and you go into sleep. Like, that's not going to happen, dude. We're all wide awake. We're tired as fuck. But we fly this mission, and we get overhead, and immediately, dude, we're getting shot at. We're in the window, and we can't see it, though. It's daytime. So it's like, it's fucking pointless for me sitting up there anyway. But we had on this trip over, we had the blower was catching like starting to smoke. It happened like 3 times on the way over because I took a tail swap. And so we fixed it every time. This time, though, we're on oxygen. We're like 15.5 or something. And we're not doing like you're supposed to. We're all on 100% oxygen instead of being on normal so we can get ambient air coming in there. So none of us smell the smoke. And then all of a sudden, man, I see like a ghost kind of out of the peripheral of my eyes. And I look back in the cabin, and it's just billowing black smoke. I'm like, oh, fuck. And immediately I know that it's the blower, right? So at that point when I announce it, I'm like, hey, crew, the blower's fucking acting up again. I'm going to disconnect, and I'm going to go handle it. The load master at the time had seen a lot of crazy shit, right? So he's wanting to get out, but I'm like, dude, you can't get out. Like, I got to have my guns on the guns, and me and the engineer are going to have to figure this out. The gun deck screaming at me because they're like, hey, like, are we going to shoot? I'm like, yeah, the fucking Marines are pinned down. They're losing guys right now. Like, get rounds out of the fucking plane. Like, don't worry about this. I'll handle this. So I left them back there, right? And so they literally handled that, shooting and everything else. And me and Manjapani got up there and like got this blower like this. We ended up jettisoning the that blower. It was like literally it smoked so bad that we couldn't just disconnect the cannon plug. The cannon plug had soldered itself to the actual motor because the electrical it had been there that long. So we're up there, and again we're fighting this in just regular oxygen masks, not smoke masks. So every time we moved, it would, smoke's going in our face, or he'd spray me with a fucking fire extinguisher in the face, or I'd spray him in the face with a fire extinguisher. We're both of their fire extinguishers, and like I said, we finally get it done. The gunners are now screaming because they're like, "Hey, the 40 bag's filling up. Like, what do we fucking do?" I'm like, "Just cut the fucking bag. I don't fucking care. Cut the bag, put a new bag on. Like, keep rounds going out." And luckily, they ended up getting a little. They shut it down. They did a bag change real quick, put a new bag on, keep shooting, and we go back. We jettison it and get it all done. So in the meantime, me and the engineer are like assholes and elbows trying to fucking fix this. Right? We run out of fuel, so we missed our minimum fuel for hitting the tanker. So then we're like, fuck. So we're flying out of God dang, I'm trying to think about how it was. But basically, the base we flew out of, and we're supposed to return back to, we couldn't get back there. So we had to go land at the base where the 16th SOS was at. So we land there. We can't get 40 mil because they don't have that, but we can get 105. So we upload some more 105 with them, and then take off and go shoot more for these guys. Come home. So again, I'm thinking I did a great thing. Like I just taught these guys a fucking awesome lesson, right? But yeah, that shit backfired though, because like a couple of those guys like never wanted to fly again. They were like, "Dude, I'll never want to do that again." That was the craziest experience again. I thought we were gonna die the whole time, and you just abandoned us. And I was like, "No, I was trying to like let you like learn and like do your thing." So I learned that like, yeah, maybe not the right time on their first deployment to kind of leave them alone back there. Like, like it got kind of rough. One of those guys ended up getting out like shortly after. And we had a conversation about it. He was telling me, he's like, "Dude, I can't, I'll never be there." Like I saw the rest of the crew like cheesing and like thinking this is the coolest thing ever to happen. And like literally had hard-ons because they're finally doing what they could do. And I was terrified. Like, I think I'm going to die. I don't ever want to be in this experience again.
It's back to that whole, accepted risk versus, and then just, you got to get the op done. That's great.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I hadn't heard that. Okay, well, we have 2 segments left, and we will go ahead and roll to it, and this one should be great.
Gunship shenanigans. Welcome to the Chaos Club. Gunship shenanigans. Precision-ish with extra grub.
This is Gunship Shenanigans. So we'll start with you, Brian.
Gunship shenanigans. I think that's been the theme the whole time.
It essentially has. So if you have another story you would like to add to it, you go ahead. It is a gunner episode, so it's all shenanigans.
I think the funniest one I ever did, I have 2 that build on the whole when gunners are bored. So one night I was on a crew with Christian Lowry, Captain Lowry at the time, who is a man of short stature, but he's a gorilla.
He's a former Marine.
Former Marine drill. He was a Marine martial arts instructor. So he trained the instructors, right? And we're on an op one night. He's the navigator, so he's communicating with the ground party. I'm sitting in the jump seat next to him, and I just, for some reason, thought I'm gonna teabag him. And so while he was, doing his ground party thing, just stood up, unzipped the flight suit, and put my nuts on his shoulder. Of course, he shoved me off of him, and I took off giggling and running. And he grabbed my comm cord. So gunners have a 50-foot comm cord, so that attaches to our headset, so we can move around the plane. And so he grabbed my comm cord, and my head kind of jerked back, so I didn't want to lose my headset. And so I'm standing there while he's finishing up talking to the ground party. And if you remember, like, he's at his station, I'm right there in the doorway. He's got my my headset. I'm scared to death. And their helmet is hung up right there on their panel. So I looked over and I just grabbed and undid the bayonets on his oxygen mask and teabagged his oxygen mask. And of course, he just throws my comm cord and lets me go. And I run off giggling. And, all the while, he's trying to talk to the ground team. And comes up on P1 later. He's like, if we go on oxygen tonight, I'm going to beat your ass. And as he should have. And then the second one I did, I forget his name. He was one of the sensors that swapped over from AWACS, Master Sergeant type. He was my boss at the ops desk for a bit. But we were crewing together and overseas, and I teabagged his shoulder.
Was it Bridges?
Bridges. There we go. So it was Bridges, and I think it was his first rote with gunships, and I stood behind him and put my nuts on his shoulder and kind of tapped on his shoulder to say hi, and he looked up at me and waved at me, and because Bridges was like the nicest guy on planet Earth,
but he wasn't a tiny guy.
No, he was big. So he looks up at me, but he didn't notice my nuts on his shoulder. So he looks back, goes back to what he was doing, tapped on him again, and looks up and kind of looks at me like, what? And I pointed down, and then he realized. So that, of course, he panics. At the same time, so I remember Poindexter was our FOCO, and we had a Brit L&O on board sitting next to Freddie. So the Brit's kind of like 3 or 4 feet to my right. And I went, all right, I've already got one reaction. And of course, they're all seeing this and they're laughing. And I kind of go in my head, 2 birds with 1 stone, and just kind of jumped and turned 90 degrees to the right and started doing the helicopter right in front of this Brit L&O. And he did not miss a beat. He just reached up and just went whack and just whacked me right in the nuts. And I felt it in my throat and like stumbled backwards out of the BMC and like ended up like on my butt, just like arms sitting next to the flight meals in the coolers. Just like that went horribly wrong.
You went prepubescent for a minute.
Yeah, no, I felt that one in my soul.
Dude.
What about you, Ben?
Yeah, so, all right, along with the same lines, right? The gunner hug, right? Everybody's heard of them, right? It was a huge thing. So when the H1 guys tied up their EWO and did everything they did to him while he was tied up, and that turned into like an international incident, and everybody got shut down. I think they ended up on Dr. Phil, actually. But, yeah, I would go to lunch with like these random other officers from other crew position, other like platforms. And they were always like, why are you guys doing these gunner hugs? Like, that's so disgusting and so wrong. I'm like, you guys don't understand what a gunner hug is. Like, you have no idea what you're even talking about. Like, at the time, what was going on is, dude, we were deploying our nuts off. We were literally, like I said, there was one time I was home like 6-7 days and went right back. Like Belden said, where he was the #1 deployed loadmaster, like for a year. Like, I did that year after year after year after year. Like, and it wasn't just me, man. There was like, all of us were doing it, right? You were always gone. And so when I talk about my worst deployment, it was when somebody was bitching. You hated dudes that were bitching. That would ruin a deployment when somebody started bitching about what they're missing from home. Like, yeah, I get it, bro. I miss my kids. I miss my wife. I don't want to fucking hear that shit. Like, I wanted to sit here, do my job, and then get home. When you bitch, now I think about it, and now it makes me depressed. I don't want to hear that. So what everybody started doing was like, hey, if you're going to bitch and you're going to complain, I'm going to make you happy by stripping all my clothes off and rubbing my dick on you until you're fucking put a smile on your face. And it worked, because as soon as somebody would start bitching, you're like, oh, you sound like you're bitching? And then you start unzipping your flight suit, and then they're like, oh, no, I'm happy, dude. Life's fucking great. Life's amazing. Everything is cool. Like, awesome. We'd proceed on. But that's where the gunner hug came from. It came from, like, checking dudes. Because what can you do for somebody who's bitching and complaining all the time? There's nothing you can really do to them, right? You rub your dick on them, maybe they'll quit bitching, right? And so that's where it came from. That's all it was from. And it was a way, like, I saw myself as a gunner when I first came in, was like, everybody's trying to fall asleep. You know, everybody's miserable. We're missing our families. All this shit's going on. Like, the least I could do is maybe get naked and act like a fucking idiot in front of everybody. Everybody laugh, and it's funny. And you had that little one moment of like, everything's cool, right? We're in Iraq, we're in Afghanistan. This shit sucks. We're getting shot at. But this fucking idiot just ran in here and did the helicopter. It was funny. Ha ha ha, right? No harm, no foul. It's not like you had a heart on when you did it. That'd be different, right? You're doing it soft, It's funny. So yeah, that's where all that came from, man. That's what it was about.
Right. Okay. Well, I have just a follow-on question. It has nothing to do with that, but just impulsive answer, top of your head, and then we'll close out. In your mind, each of you individually, who was the smartest, best gunner you ever flew with?
Scotty Hawthorne. Scotty Hate.
Scotty Hate.
Yeah.
So are we saying the smartest gunner on? I mean, I don't know if my answer changes here. Smartest gunner on gun things, or just smartest in general?
In gunships, the smartest one you ever flew with, the best one you ever flew with.
I don't know why I asked that because I don't think the answer changes.
So,
but
like I said, Scotty Hawthorne for U models, for H models, it's gonna have to be Josh Martinez, man. The dude's a doctor now. I remember him being a crazy ass gunner.
Mine was retired now Chief Smith. Old Smitty was about as intelligent and perfect. Like that man could. Not only would you have to know where you could find a reg, but what sentence, what paragraph,
what page number,
number. You avoided him on a good day because he was going to wreck you.
Addendum, additional and all. Yeah,
and
that's cool.
A quick backtrack to episode 1 with Yoakum and the Xbox. I had the same experience with Smitty. I made him so mad playing Halo 2 one day. I walked out and he had a cigarette and a Mountain Dew and just said, "Don't you fucking talk to me." Chief Smith was about as intelligent as you get.
Well, now I understand. I never deployed with Chief Smith. I mean, he was in the unit. I knew him, but now I understand the confusion when I was trying to lightly suggest Rocky about the Mountain Dew and the Marlboro's pyramids on deployment. Got it.
Rocky. God, I worked with him. And see, that's something we haven't even touched on. We're gonna have to do another round of this.
Totally, and we will totally.
The whole range ops things and the stories there with
yes,
Rocky and Danny.
TF.
Yeah. I wasn't going to bring that up, but
well, he's going to be. They're doing an episode on the 22nd.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah,
loved him. He didn't love me much, but loved him.
I don't know that he loved many people. Okay, guys. Well, last question here, and this is just personal feelings on it. What does the Gunship legacy mean to you, and being a part of it, and what does it still mean to you this day?
So I'll go ahead and take this. So first off, so I left Gunships in 2016. I did from 02 to 2016, and then, 2017. I left to San Antonio to teach, and then came right back in 2020 and came back as a superintendent. So I'm thinking like this is still the same Gunships, except it's now a J model. But I got checked out on the J, and then I come back in, and man, dude, it's just completely different. Like I remember walking in as superintendent, like a random Friday, nothing's going on. And I cracked my first beer at, 10 a.m. and I'm telling everybody, like, what are you doing in the office? And they're like, oh, sir, you checking emails, da-da-da. I'm like, cool, man. Like, you've checked enough emails. I'll see you later. Take the day off. They're like, oh, no, sir, I was going to just hang out a little longer. I'm like, dude, I'm a super fucking intendant. Like, leave. They're like, no, sir, I don't put in my time. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, if in the old Gunship days, you tell a dude to leave, he leaves. He's not sticking around.
Yeah, you ain't even got to finish. You ain't got to finish that sentence. We're out the door.
Yeah, and then I would like try to walk in and like hand kids beers like in the middle of the day, and they're like, "Oh, sir, I don't drink," or it's too early to drink, or whatever. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm fucking senior, and so hand you a beer, fucking drink the beer and just relax. But dude, the mindset's different. And then like I would have, like, I'm not even bullshitting when I say this. I'm being straight up honest. like staff sergeants and like senior airmen request a meeting with me to go over their EPRs to see how they look for chief master sergeant. I'm like, what are you talking about? When I was a senior airman and a staff, I was trying to avoid talking to the leadership in the squadron because I knew you're going to smell alcohol on my breath because I was drunk from the night prior. Like, dude, it is completely different. And then now, too,
culture is 100% changed.
the culture's changed. And then also, it's like, and I get it. Like, dude, hats off to these new J.
Well, it's a whole lot less enlisted, man. A whole lot less enlisted.
It is,
so.
but hats off to these new enlisted guys because, dude, what they do, like, it's no longer like wheels up, feet up like a gunner. I mean, you're the engineer, dude. You're the engineer. You're the fucking UO. You're the FOCO. You're the gunner. Like, you're everything, dude. And so, like, I run these checklists with these guys and go through these, malfunctions and everything else. And I'm like, man. And then even when I checked out as a J model guy, like, it was just nerve-wracking to like sit back there as the engineer when a malfunction happens and both co-pilot and pilot look at you like, what do we do? And I'm like, fuck, man, I'm gonna read this checklist and try to figure it out. I don't know.
Give me 20, I'll get back to you.
Yeah. And so we'd get through it because everything's the FADEC controls everything, right? And the checklist pretty much does everything. So it's not that cosmic, but it's just, to me, coming from a U model where you have an engineer who like knows everything about that aircraft and can fix anything, to a guy who all he can do is read a fucking checklist, like, a little nerve-wracking. And to me personally, the way I see Gunships kind of going is like, there's always talks of taking the 105 off and everything else. And what I think it is everybody's lost touch with reality. Everybody's forgot about like Black Hawk Down. Everybody's forgot about the embassy that got overrun. Anything you can think of that's ever gone crazy in this country would have never fucking happened if you had a gunship overhead. So like, I think what's going to have to happen is another crazy incident where people were like, oh, that's why you have to have a gunship, right? Because they keep thinking, hey, we're going to throw bombs on drones. I'm like, yeah, that's cool whenever you're blowing up a building in the middle of nowhere. But what happens when the ground team goes in and now the enemy's on top of them? What do you do then?
Yeah, and you have to do crowd control. And
then
all
what?
of the things. Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my whole rant.
Yeah. Okay, but coming from that world to the new world, what did that being a part of that lineage mean?
I love the old world. Like, I was an old gunner, so
right.
I got the taste of what everything was changing, honestly, in San Antonio when I would make jokes and like I could see the class kind of like, ew. Like, I don't like that, right? And then when I came back, right, and I'm the superintendent, I realized like I'm too old. Like, I need to just get out. The times have just changed, man. But it's not all the way, because like the 4th SOS, like those guys, I'm still in contact with a lot of those guys. And a couple buddy of mine's deployed right now. And he texts me about the shenanigans they do, and I'm like, oh, man, I love it, dude, because it's still going. Like, you guys are still doing crazy shit.
Yeah.
There's still stupid shenanigans. But a majority of them now have switched more like this career mentality. Like, guys are all focused on making rank. I'm like, dude, none of us back then were trying to make rank, man. We were just trying to live. We were just trying to fucking make another day. Like, nobody cared about
just
fucking
survive.
rank.
Yeah. Like I'll worry about promotion testing when that time comes. Like, I just need to get experience now and not get the shit kicked out of me every night.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sweet. That's good stuff, dude. Brian?
So I think for me, I'll get a little not into the weeds, but high level with it. For me, there was an interesting moment. I was on a TDY to Little Rock Air Force Base. It was apparently the first air show we got to go to in quite a few years. And I had lived here, so I finagled my way onto it. When I lived here as a younger kid, I was in JRTC, and our colonel at the time was a gunship guy in Vietnam, and I saw him at the air show, and I was like, hey, Colonel Keeler, you won't remember me, but I was, one of your JRTC, idiots, and now I'm a gunner, on the AC-130, and I thought that'd make you proud for a moment. And he kind of looked at me and he goes, "Gunner, huh? They were always a little different." and it was in that moment I knew it hadn't changed. I was like, yeah, it's still that way. But I think, being from that world and the things that we did and why we did them, and all the things we've talked about in accepting risk and they hit the nail on the head in the last episode. Where like, we weren't worried about getting shot down. We were worried about the plane killing us.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we all did that to make sure the guys on the ground made it home. And that to me is still important. That's still something I'm proud of. Cass as a whole, as a principal, it was something that, you look back today and you can still be proud of it no matter what era you come from. And you could see it, in the conversations you enter into. It's always fun, at a bar, at an event, where you're drinking and you talk to an Army guy or a Marine and oh, what were you in? Oh, I was Air Force. And they kind of give you the Chair Force snicker.
Yeah. And you're like, bitch, look at my.
Yeah. And then you say, yeah, I was an AC-130 guy. And you can almost physically feel the conversation change.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're not buying yourself more drinks at the bar that night. And there's a different mentality when you tell them that you came from that world and the things that we did and the people that we got home because we were there sometimes. That's something I think that you can always hang your hat on at the end of the day and be proud of. From a leadership perspective, and what I've taken throughout my career, I think the biggest impact it had on me was something they pointed out in the last episode where they talked about once you stepped on that airplane, rank didn't really matter unless you were the aircraft commander. You had your positions, and each position had its particular rank in the order of things and what had to happen to get rounds out of the aircraft. But the individual was less important as far as your rank.
Right.
And I feel like that's normal. And it's not. When you go through your civilian career and you deal with organizations and, now being in charge of an organization at a company, they come to me like, how do you empower your team the way you do? Because we see it and it's incredible and we don't understand it. What do you do? I'm like, I let the professionals do the thing they're trained to do. That's what I do. I'm there to make sure that I remove the blockers. And if there's something they need me to throw my rank around to clear their path, that's my job. But their job is to be the expert at what they do. And my job is to make sure they can do it and then answer for it when they don't, and take the heat. And that's something that I learned in the gunship world, that rank, is something that only matters in certain circumstances. But what really matters and how you succeed is that the team that you have built and that you have prepared to go to battle, not that it's the same battle, but can come together. And when everything falls, can they put it back together and succeed? And that's your job as a leader to make that happen. And I trace all of that back to, again, I just had a conversation. I wrote a paper for school and had to interview Megan. Well, I didn't have to. I chose to interview, Megan Ripple, and we sat there and talked about leadership and her experiences for hours. And that's really from the top to bottom, from the lead gun to the aircraft commander to the line gunners. It's, you have to know your job and you have to be trusted to do your job. And the micromanagement culture that exists today doesn't quite fit with the principles that we all came up with and that we all were ingrained in life or death situations. Maybe not necessarily our lives, but those that we were there to protect. So that's just it's a different mentality that I think that comes from the gunship world, and not even from every aircraft in the aircraft inventory. It was a special thing that we all had, that if you allow it to grow and you foster it, you can do some pretty cool things even in the civilian world, and build some pretty cool teams and pretty cool organizations.
100%. Well, gentlemen, I really do appreciate y'all's time and y'all stepping up for episode 3. And I know we didn't even barely scratch the surface in this 3 hours.
5 more stories that I want to tell. So let me know.
We will definitely have y'all back.
Sweet.
Absolutely. And other than that, for anyone out there listening that ever was a part of AC-130s in whatever capacity and you're interested in being on the show, it's deathoncallpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know and we'll get you scheduled. this is January 25th. I'm hoping to have this uploaded in the next 24 hours, and we'll go from there. But this will be episode 1 of our 2 sequential episodes. Next weekend will be a full gun crew as well. And like I said, it's always funner with a gunner. And guys, thank y'all again for your time. And other than that, you're cleared off. And we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Awesome. And thanks.
We got gunners in the back seat laughing. Nav with the map, wrong turn, still bragging. Pilot with the coffee cup taped to the dash. Sensor on the scope, eyes locked, talking trash. We roasting the stack, then we ride for each other. Midnight meals, bad jokes, still call you my brother. Or my sister on the gun, steady hand, cold aim. Up here we share secrets that don't fit on the ground the same. This is guns, gas and confessions. Late night loops and wild obsessions. From the ramp to the front row, to the front row. Hear the stories we hide, up into the cool room inside. We got near-miss tales and you had to be there. That one flight lead lad that swore they didn't scare. The quiet kid who cracked on hour 22. The prank on the new guy's very first crew. We laugh too loud just to lighten the load. Talk dark, talk deep, same bird, same cold. What happens in the stack doesn't always stay above. We're dropping it here, raw, rough, still love. This is guns, gas and confessions. Yeah, yeah. Late night loops and wild obsessions. From the ramp to the front row, to the front row.